All right, we're here. We drafted. We did it. Thank you for everyone who came out to the house last night. Had a great time. Hopefully, the pause draft stuff wasn't too bad for the people who were online. But with all that being said, it was a really good time. Hopefully, we can, keep the vibes up again next year. But with all that information, all the people getting taken, I think we needed a little bit more insight from a co-host. So I'm bringing in someone who knows a shitload about football and does pretty well in fantasy. I'll let Nick introduce himself and give a fun fact and what he's excited for this year.
Thanks, Matt. Excited to be here. Excited to be a part of this league. Year 2 of joining you guys. I think Matt does a really good job running a fun league. I think this podcast is one of the more fun things too. So I know I've got big shoes to fill here. I enjoyed watching last year and hearing your insights, Purcell. So I hope I do you justice as his guest today. And for a fun fact, let's say this is the fewest leagues I've ever played in. Matt said I play a lot, and I do. This is 4 leagues this year, and again, probably the fewest in the last 5 or 6 years. So a couple years ago, I was in like 6 or 7, and just felt like I had to cut it down a little bit. It
Yeah, I
always
was
gets
saying
tough
that.
when you have a couple and you have to root against one guy in this league and then root for a guy in the other league. So this year,
Yeah,
I'm
I
making a
have
concerted effort to get the same
three,
guys.
three this year, and this is the least I've had in the last probably 10 years. So
All right, we're on the same boat
it's a
then. It
good
makes it
feeling
easier.
though. So yeah, so I mean, we're just gonna kind of do a quick rundown. Since keepers officially locked, before the draft, we'll talk about some of the winners, some of the losers, and then we're gonna go team by team, kind of just going like looking at each team's draft, how it went, and giving a grade, and then we're doing a little fun prediction for where we think the season's going to go. So, with that being said, this year with the pod, we are going to do a little bit more of a rotational style. So, I'll have Nick on more, I'll have Ed on some. I'm sure Purcell will pop on, and other people here and there too. So, we'll keep it fun, we'll keep it light, and we'll try to get everybody involved. But just real quick, so winners and losers of keepers. I think I had 3 winners. My first one was risky deeper, keeping Garrett Wilson with the 16th round pick. I think that's pretty clear that he's going to be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, and to be able to use the 16th, that's fantastic for him. That being said, we'll probably revisit that, moving forward. But just thoughts on that one.
Yeah, that is far and away my winner too. When you look at the surplus value gained by each of the keepers we had, most of this league picked guys who were either a first or second round essential value. And most guys paid either a first or second round pick generally to keep their guy. Garrett Wilson, though, is, again, probably a top 25-ish player, and you're getting him for like the last round pick. So that is an absurdly good keeper. It's far and away, in my mind, the best value there was too. It was also my one.
Yeah. The second here I got is you with keeping Pollard in the 8th round, I believe. Because again, he's a guy that's going to go pretty much similar to Garrett Wilson, that mid-second round kind of guy at the latest. And to be able to get him with your 8 to pair, and we'll break down your draft, but to be able to throw him out there as a lock is great at that value.
Yeah, I also the top 3. I was my third favorite with Tony Pollard, and that's just sort of the looking into. I wish I could say with some sort of amazing insight. It's just last year I liked Pollard a lot. I thought Zeke was kind of washed. Pollard ended up
Worked
doing
out.
pretty well last year and ends up being surplus value.
Now he's the bell cow.
My
And
second,
then
though. Well, you go
go
ahead.
ahead.
See,
No,
do your
you
third.
no,
We'll see
you
if your third's my
no, tell
second.
me who your second is. Let's do it.
It's not gonna be fun for the guys watching, man. Because we're gonna suck each other off here a little bit. You like Pollard. I think yours with the Rashad White, just because you're getting a serviceable player for your last round pick, was my second favorite keep actually. Again, stressing the surplus value matters a lot here.
Sure. Yeah, so I didn't mention myself because I was kind of midway about mine. I just kind of, again, it was a value thing for me, but my third winner was definitely I'm on a new level, Mr. Leonard, keeping Justin Jefferson at the 10th overall pick because he's going number 1 on everybody's board, and to be able to get him for 10th overall, still a first rounder, but you're not getting that kind of value out of the number 10 spot any other way. So
no arguments for me here. I have him tied for 4th. So
there it is.
Same boat.
Yeah. Who was your other 4th? Just curious.
My other 4th was apologies, freezing up on me. Oh, it was actually the Cooper Cup, which I know it seemed like from the chat room people didn't love.
There we go. That's a good segue. Because that was
I don't
my
think you loved it
biggest
either, by the way.
loser.
But I think
It's my biggest loser. So explain to me why you had it as a win.
Well, I think when you're keeping a guy outside the first 5 or 10 picks, and you keep a guy like Cooper Kupp, who was the wide receiver 1 2 years ago, was on pace to be the wide receiver 1 a year ago until he got hurt, and now is back. Stafford's back. Injuries happen, but when you start a season in fantasy football, there's a lot that can go against you. I had Jonathan Taylor last year, Javonte Williams. You guys talked about it last week. And I say it just because a lot of guys can bust, a lot of guys can get hurt. So you don't have great odds in the year starts. You need to sort of take chances. And Cooper Kupp, if he's healthy, is at worst probably the wide receiver 3. At best, he's wide receiver 1 again.
Yeah.
And again, with most of the keepers being guys who are surplus value players, I think you're definitely not keeping Cooper Kupp that late. And I think it's really good to lock him in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. My only counter argument was really just who else he had on the roster. So he had Chubb in the second and Saquon in the third. Getting Saquon as a third round value is, you talk about the value share and all that. That to me would have been the biggest one by far. But I mean, I get scared by guys with hamstring injuries. I mentioned it a lot in the notes that I wrote today on the draft picks. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Cup, if he's healthy, he's top 3, maybe top 1, honestly. But I just, when guys get pull those hamstrings a couple times, history has shown that it's a pattern.
It's an injury you can definitely, re-aggravate as the year goes on. And Saquon's got a very muddled injury history, but just for the sake of clarification there too, I'm not basing this on who I think they should have kept, because there were a couple guys when you and Purcell won a week or two ago where I thought that might not be the one I would have kept that ended up being the keeper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basing this just on what they did and then the way I think
Sure.
it impacts them starting from the auction. And in that case, I
Gotcha.
do like Cup.
Gotcha. Well,
Similarly
I
with
mean,
you, you bring up a good point though. I liked your Rashad White a lot. I also would have really liked Fields from you personally.
I was really debating that. I just couldn't pull the trigger on keeping a quarterback. But I obviously it's the way my draft kind of went. It would have been fine, but that's it. Just didn't feel right to me do that.
No,
But
no,
it would have
I
been
hear
good
you.
value. But
My point's just, I think it's another case of there being multiple guys that are worth keeping. For what it's worth, though, I would have probably gone with Saquon too. I think it's an embarrassment of riches. He had options there in the sense that Cup is also a really good surplus value. And at the top of your
yeah,
draft, you want the blue chip guys.
oh for sure. With that being said, we're gonna roll in here, and I'm gonna share my screen. And let me see how this. You see that? It's nice and big. You see that? All right.
Yep, you took it from my screen. I see it.
All righty, cool. All right, so first on the docket here, we're just going to go over Team Nate's draft picks. Coming out swinging with the 101, grabbing Bijan Mustardson, and digs on the keeper there. I I I don't hate it. I just think that Bijan, if you're going for a running back, there is the biggest risk of the ones that were available.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the ones available would you have taken over? Because I actually would have
Saquon or
probably taken
Chubb.
two.
I would have gone that way.
I think it's completely defensible. We haven't seen Bijan play before. The Falcons weren't very good last year. But that said, I would have taken Bijan first overall too.
Okay,
The record the last 5-6 years now, basically since Zeke's draft, even a bit further back than that, once you take a running back in the top 10 to 15 picks, and it seems like the team's committed to him, they do pretty well.
sure.
So I don't have any reason to
I
think Bijan's gonna be bad.
That's fair, and I don't either. I would have if he fell to me at 6, I would have taken him. So I can't really
Yeah.
knock it. It's just when you have the and even Kelsey on the board, I think you could argue could have gone here too.
Kelsey
But
would have been my one, by the way. Hot take
yeah,
there. I know some people in the
that's
chat last night were talking about not wanting to take Kelsey. But Kelsey's who I would have taken if I had the first
that's
pick.
same with me. If Kelsey fell to me, I would have taken him over Bijan. But nonetheless, goes out and gets his guy. Rounds 3 and 4, Jonathan Taylor and D Hop. It seemed like these might have been some auto drafts because I am horrified of what Jonathan Taylor's situation is, and D Hop is old, and his quarterback is not very good.
Yeah. Yeah, the way this broke down here, I mean, I almost want to talk about him separately just because Taylor going as the first pick of the third versus I feel like Hopkins is sort of with Godwin there back to back.
Sure, yeah, it was back to back. Yeah, so JT is
Um,
the 3-1. Yeah,
all of that said, there were receivers I personally liked more than Hopkins. I like Godwin more than Hopkins too, even I think. So I think if those are
well,
your two guys, if they're auto picks, they're auto picks. That probably explains it. I don't
mhm.
think they're terrible picks there, but they're not the guys I would have gone with. I think it makes sense though if you are painting yourself a scenario where Jonathan Taylor does play, is Jonathan Taylor from 2 years ago. There was the number 1 overall pick, and you pair him with Bijan, then you just want to load up on flex receivers. So I think there's a case here could work. I think Taylor, for my mind, in the third round is completely defensible. I probably would have not taken Hopkins or Godwin though.
I don't. I just like you said with JT. His situation's so weird. Like, is he going to get traded? Is he, like you said, is he going to report to Indy? Like, and plus with the new quarterback in town with AR, it's what's that offense even going to look like?
Well, let's
Like, I
wrap that
think.
on that a little bit actually, real quick, because
Mhm.
I think with Taylor, I almost kept Taylor. If I didn't have Tony Pollard personally, that's who I would have kept. And I know we're not talking about that anymore, but I do think there's very few scenarios where Taylor doesn't report pretty early on, if at all, just because he needs to accrue that year. We saw with the Lev Bell thing 5-6 years ago, whatever that was. And this isn't even a
Yeah,
case
it
of the
didn't work
franchise
out.
tag. JT's in his rookie deal.
Mhm.
So I think it's likely he either gets traded, probably not for a first round pick. So he probably has to report to the Colts, like we've
Yeah.
seen, the Saquon, the Josh Jacobs last couple of days. A lot of these other running backs have reported. J.K. Dobbins is back with the Ravens. I think Taylor ultimately does report is the most likely outcome.
Yeah,
Maybe they
I
give him a little bit more
agree,
money.
but
And also with AR though,
Mhm.
that's a good thing. I think you think about Alfred Morris with RG3. You think about all the running backs on the Ravens the years. Like remember Devonta Freeman and
Mhm.
Gus Edwards as a rookie, and all these guys who are just trash basically. A running
And it
quarterback
worked
threat
out. Yeah.
is huge with a fairly good offensive line in Indy. So I think when Taylor comes, even if you miss him for a little bit early on, this is Team Nate maybe thinking about the playoff race in October,
My
November.
only counter to that though is how often are the Colts going to be leading in games where they can actually afford to run the ball? You know,
I
and
don't know if that
Jonathan Taylor
necessarily something I
isn't,
would worry about too much though.
but he's not the pass catching option. I mean, like you said, in the three, it's not the most ridiculous pick. It's just I'm not in love with the player more so than where he was
Hmm.
picked. I think is more so my stance. But
Yeah, it does sound like I'm more sold on Taylor than you are.
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
But moving on here, we got Kyle Pitts late in the sixth, and then turning around and getting Lockett. Um, I I don't know what to get out of Pitts because that offense is going to be, I mean, it's going to be Bijan Central with that team for sure with their run scheme. And then, Drake London's probably going to ascend a little bit this year too. So where does that leave Pitts? He's a great talent, but he's been a great talent for the last 2 years. And what has he done? And then Lockett real quick. I think that's a good pick. He just seems to consistently produce.
It's almost a hedge with the Bijan in some ways because what are the odds both Bijan and Pitts aren't as good as people think they're going to be? The Falcons' offense has to be pretty poor for one of them not to be excellent, and probably the other one to be fine too. I
That's
think
a
Pitts
good
is
point.
fine there, and Lockett's my favorite pick from this draft. I agree with you on that, or favorite pick from his draft personally. Excuse me. I think
It's good
Lockett should be
value and
going.
he's
I would
consistent.
take Lockett in the same tier with Godwin and Hopkins personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think production wise, they might end up around the same ballpark. I mean, I know JSN's there now, but
Exactly, but he's hurt for the
it's
first probably 4 or 5 weeks.
he's a rookie, so you just never know how they're gonna, slide into there. But so
Agreed.
I like Dak in the eighth. I think that's good. That's good value there. He didn't get I think it's probably auto draft's fault that he didn't get sucked into the QB battle that went off early there. But I
Yeah,
think it's
that run
good. And
like
then
round 4.
yeah. But Dak's fine there in the eighth, and just to round it off, Tucker, Komet, Burks, Saints, Chark, Mooney, Singletary, and Paris. I don't really like any of these. I mean, obviously JT is number one kicker, but not all these picks kind of scream. Well, they're auto draft, but I don't like them. I don't think there's one that I think is good.
Yeah, to be efficient with time, I don't have a strong take on any of them. I actually like Burks where you got Burks. I think it's good value, but there's not too many scenarios because of the receivers you took over, and you're going to be playing Burks anyway.
I mean, Burks was the number one option in Tennessee last year, receiving pretty much, and he didn't really do anything.
Well, the
I
argument you can
just
make too might be that if Hopkins were to suffer an injury or to just be not great, it's probably because Burks gets good and you maybe want to play Burks. So I think he's the one of these I like the best.
Yeah, that's fair. All this down here in the 14 through 16 is just a poop show.
And in
But that
fairness
being
to him, though, I
said,
mean, a lot of guys'
mhm.
last 4 round picks are kind of poop show picks, right? I mean, you're taking some lottery picks.
Yeah, oh, you're definitely shooting your shot, but I think these were the wrong shots. But that being said, like if just kind of my synopsis of this team, if we were to go basically like fourth round down, I would probably give this a D. But with these, I like the Diggs keep, and JT and Bijan is Jonathan as a RB2 is good, and
Agreed.
Bijan is going to be should be our RB1. So with that, I'll squish it up to a C minus, maybe to a C. I don't think this team has a lot of staying power. I don't think it's going to be one of the good ones this year. So that's just my opinion. But
I think it comes down to we feel a bit different about Taylor. I would probably say B minus, C plus draft, but I think I'm higher on Taylor.
yeah, I went a little hard on the grades. I think I only gave out one A.
Hmm.
So I went a little tough grading. Let me
If JT
find.
doesn't report that, you're in trouble because I don't know who your running back 2 is.
That's a great point. All right,
Is it
let's
Elijah
find.
Mitchell? Or you don't have Elijah Mitchell. Sorry, you're scrolling some other team now. My bad.
Oh no, yeah, it's we can scroll back down. He's still all the way
That's
down
good.
here. Here we go. Yeah, with Taylor, and then holy moly.
Devin Singletary, league winner.
Yeah, we got
Auto
yeesh.
draft kind of screwed him there.
Yeah, auto draft typically does screw everyone. But we'll move to the uh newly named tongue cat throat yogurt instead of why is this fantasy chat in my face?
Let's chat,
Oh hey,
buddy.
that's you.
Why are you in my baseball league there?
Well, we're just gonna have to deal with this being in our face, I think.
Let's chat.
Let's check. All right. So number 2 pick, the keeper was Devontae Kelsey. I think that was a no-brainer. He didn't love it doing it, but you kind of had to. And I just to touch on Ridley, he wanted to keep Ridley as his guy. He would have been a 16th rounder, but comes around to him in the third rounds and he lands his guy. So first 3 picks, I think, are all strong.
Yeah. To highlight what we were talking about with your team and some other teams specifically, with keepers, I would have kept Ridley for the last round pick. Ridley's going in main events right now in the $1,000 to $1,500 high stakes leagues as a turn second, third round pick, even without the keepers. So getting him here with keepers in there is excellent.
Yeah,
And like I said,
agree.
Kelsey, of the guys available, would have been my 1-1. So I love that you got Kelsey there.
Yeah.
Devontae is huge surplus value in the second round too. So great first 3.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can't really go wrong with that. And then I love the T-Law pairing with Ridley. He said T-Law was the guy that he wanted because he took a quarterback after I did when I took Herbert. But Lawrence, he said he would have taken Lawrence over Herbert, which I found a little interesting. But I get it. It should be an exciting offense. So I think that's a nice combo. And then I'll let you talk about Trevor.
Yeah, Lawrence and Connor there, the 2 picks after that, not quite back to back, but around the same area.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you said, Lawrence is a little bit early for me. If it's your guy, get your guy. He's not going to come back to you 20 picks later or whatever. And Connor, you probably want to get a running back. You have no running backs yet. I think it makes sense. I don't love Connor, but I think he's safe.
I mean, he's your
Who's
RB.
taking his job?
That's true. I mean, my thing is just I don't like. I mean, I didn't want a piece of the Cardinals this year. I just wanted to avoid them completely. Connor will touch the ball, but again, they're going to be playing from behind all the time. Like, how much is he actually going to touch the ball and score with a putrid offensive line? And he's your 1. If he's your 2, like Taylor, like if he's your 2, it's fine. But as your 1, it scares me.
I think we agree on that. I wouldn't want him as my 1 either. But I think,
yeah,
knowing the first 4 picks you made, you have to take running back at some point.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're going to hate your RB1 no matter what.
Yeah, I'm good, and I'm good with Addison here. He should be the 2 in Minnesota. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot, as they always do. So I think that's a fine pick. I hate the Swift pick. I don't like the Eagles' running system, and Swift might not even be RB1 halfway through the year. Sounds like they really like Gainwell, and they just have so many passes. They have 4 guys that can do it. So it's going to be a flip of the coin of who's going to be the guy that scores each week.
Yeah, these both feel like mid to late season picks to me in the sense that I like Addison a lot too, not necessarily early on. It's going to take a little bit to come in there and, overtake KJ Osborne probably. Even Justin Jefferson his rookie year didn't start, I think, week 1 or week 2, and he ended up having, rookie record season basically.
Yeah.
So I think by like mid season, Addison's awesome. And with Swift, there's probably going to be a few weeks you want to use him, a few weeks you don't. I think you're going to be basically, like you said, not sure who's the starter, who's going to get the majority of the carries. But once he's having some hot streaks and maybe Gainwell gets hurt, someone else gets hurt, I think he'll be fine to use some weeks. And he's basically your RB2. You got to take running backs.
Yeah, and Addison there too, just with Ridley and Adams already off. I mean, that's a completely you can wait for him. You don't need to plug him in right away.
Exactly.
Guy you will plug in right away is Jamal Pokemon Williams.
My favorite pick from this guy's draft.
That's a really great pick, especially first 3 weeks. Get off to a hot start. Guys gonna even when Kamara's back, I think
I was just gonna say that he's gonna be the goal line guy.
Probably still get the goal lines.
Remember the Mark Ingram role all those years?
Yeah, and he'll probably still get probably 10 to 15 touches a game. I would think, because who knows what Kamara's going to be when he comes back.
Agreed.
And then just to kind of run this out here, Eagles, Harry Butt, Gabe Davis, McKinnon, Derek Carr, Everett, Browns, and I love the Renfro pick. I think that's super awesome value for a guy that might score a lot of touchdowns this year on a who knows Raiders offense. But all in all, any thoughts on these guys real quick before we?
No, like I said, Jamal Williams is my favorite pick of this draft here as far as value goes. I think Gabe Davis is a great post type guy. Even if nothing happens to Diggs, there's still a chance Gabe Davis. I mean, how many times has a rookie tight end been amazing immediately either? It doesn't really happen. So even though Dalton Kincaid's getting gassed up a lot right now, I still love Gabe Davis this late in the draft. There's a real chance he could end up being a top 30 guy.
In the 11th, I agree. That's a really good.
When you're using him during bye weeks, you'll be excited about it, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. But all in all, I'm going with a B- here on the draft. I love the receiving core. It's just the running backs scare me. This team just seems to have the ability to trade one of these, an Addison or, you can probably package something together with, especially if some of these guys perform, to go out and get an RB2 and that could really ascend this team with, a Connor and a guy similar to that. And then these guys up top, this would be a hard team to beat. So I went B- just because I don't love the backfield. And just the lack of balance there is going to kind of screw you sometimes.
I went C+. We're on the same page generally with this team.
Gotcha. All right. So moving on, got to find the next guy. There he is. Risky Dipper, who has not changed his team name yet. Spoiler alert, I loved this guy's draft pretty much all the way through, for the most part. But going through it, Saquon at the 3 and Stevenson getting your RB1, RB2. I think the Zeke Elliott signing is not going to impact Ramondre that much because Zeke's fat and old. So
couldn't agree with you more. I think Zeke is basically no running back gets all the touches, and Zeke is basically a shell of what Zeke used to be, just a big name.
Yeah. And then the man who started the madness with the quarterbacks, taking Patty Mahomes. He really impacted the way the draft went, honestly, with this pick, because if you looked at the flow of the next 12 picks, I think 6 or 7 quarterbacks went. So it really jump-started that whole thing. And getting QB1, and based off how the draft went, I think this is a great pick. Just because now if quarterbacks didn't start going until the 5th, 6th, 7th, then I think it might have been a reach. But with the way that it went, I think it worked out.
I think we mostly agree, but I'll challenge it even further and say I think it's a good pick either way. In a league of 12 teams where it felt like last year when teams started to fall out of it, there's less activity on the waiver wire and stuff. So I think if you're someone who's going to be proactive the whole season, it makes it even more of a good move, in my opinion, in a 1 quarterback, 1 tight end league to take a guy like Kelsey early, take a guy like Mahomes or Allen a little bit earlier. It's not what I did this year, but I do think the shallower the league and the better you feel you are at waivers, the more worthwhile it is to do that, because I feel very confident saying Mahomes is going to be 1 or 2 at quarterback. And in the 3rd round, I know you don't want to take quarterback in the 1st round, but in the 3rd round, it's great. And even what you said too, it definitely did trigger a run, which I think makes it look even better.
Makes it even better, exactly. And then we got 4 through 6 here: Christian Watson, Dobbins, and Ayuk. I like Christian Watson's game a lot as your wide receiver 1. It scares me a little bit just because he's kind of big play kind of guy. Dobbins, I think that's a good pick, being your 3rd running back option, especially if he's healthy. Then it's a great pick. And then Ayuk, I think, is a really strong wide receiver too to plug in every week.
Agreed. I was just going to ask you. So, would you have taken in the last draft we looked at? Would you have taken Dobbins over James Conner?
That's tough because it's kind of a different scenario. Because if you're drafting Dobbins there, you're taking him as your number 1, and so I do see the point of drafting James Conner there ahead of him, just because you're getting a guy who's kind of proven it a little bit more than Dobbins has, I guess.
Yeah, I wasn't asking any kind of little question. I agree with you. I would take Conner over Dobbins too. It's nice Dobbins is reported. He's a great flex though for you.
No, absolutely. And then we just slide the next 3 here: Goddard, Cooks, and Mostert. Goddard, getting a top 5 tight end is always helpful, especially when you already kind of stacked your team up a little bit here. I love the Brandon Cooks draft pick. I think the guy's going to have a really good year in Dallas. He has a good year everywhere he goes.
And then
Mostert, I mean, he's your running back 4. I think that's really good value because he could pop any week, and that's gonna be fun to watch. So I like I don't love the whole Miami kind of thing, but for what he is for this team, I think it's a really good pick.
Yeah, I think my favorite of these picks is either Ayuk or Goddard. I think Goddard is also my tight end 5. So like you said, top 5 tight end this late when the majority of your lineups filled out. Love that. And Ayuk, I think, is better than where he went here. He's someone I would have loved to have come back to me. We were drafting close to each other. Great pick.
Yeah. Let's see. And we got these 2 guys here, the Batman and Quentin Johnston. Again, I think Quentin Johnston could eventually later in the season be a automatic start kind of guy. And then Bateman, he's a fine plug and play option if you got bye week troubles and stuff like that. So I like both those picks as well.
Yeah, great post-up guy in Bateman. And then Johnson, I agree. Mike Williams gets hurt every year, and Keenan Allen's been, banged up a good bit the last couple of years too. Love the idea of having Quentin Johnson in October, November when you need a bye week guy as my receiver 1 or 2 on the Chargers.
Sure. And then we, can't forget Garrett Wilson down there. Yeah, right. But then we got Saunders, Broncos, Jared Goff, and Elliott. The Zeke pick is what it is. He's your running back 5 or 6. Doesn't really matter that much. Probably be a waiver drop in a couple weeks. From
this is the Ramondre team, right?
Yeah. So it's a good handcuff.
So you're handcuffing. Yeah.
And then I like golf back up. It's good value. And Broncos D, Saunders, and then Garrett Wilson. So you go back up here real quick. So Watson's really your wide receiver 2. So I like that a lot more. So it kind of, that makes it even better. And I forgot this too when I was making my notes, and I had to go back and change it. But yeah, so Watson as the 2. I like this draft a lot. Any thoughts on those last couple here?
No, of these last 2 picks, again, Johnson's my favorite of them. Not counting obviously the keeper. Garrett Wilson's an excellent last round pick.
Sure.
And you said you like the draft a lot. I gave this an A-.
Okay, yeah, I gave it a B plus. I think the only issue is just finding a consistent flex. Because you got a lot of options here as far as who you're going to plug in. So it's about pushing the right buttons, picking the right matchups, and getting a little bit lucky. But if he can do that, I think this guy's definitely in contention to win the league.
Agreed. The bad news, good news is, unfortunately, a third of them are going to get hurt in the first month or so because it happens to everybody, and you're going to be deeper and better apt to handle it than most teams.
Yep. But all right, moving on to Team Coleman in the 4 spot here. All right, so his keeper was Jamar. I think that's a no-brainer. Swinging around back and get Metcalf, really strong receiver room there, and then ETN is the RB1. Give or take on that one, but
is there a running back on the board you would have taken over ETN? You're saying?
Not so much. It's just, again, I mean, if you're getting third round value is pretty good. I think Tank's really good, and we can get. I think you picked.
I like Tank too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to end up kind of being the ground and pound guy, and ETN's going to be more scatty and third down stuff. But ETN's a great player, great talent. So I think it's a fine pick there, especially with those two top receivers there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't love him there. I think that's about where I take him. That's the only reason I asked.
That's and then Pierce in the 4th. I don't know what to expect out of Houston. But Pierce is really talented. I had him last year. I liked him. I almost kept him. I really thought about it, but he's a good player. And then you round it out with Madison, who I think probably is going to be probably the most consistent, at least in the beginning of the year, out of these 3, just because there's not really anybody competing with Madison for touches.
Like, put you on the spot again real quick. So we talked about the James Conner and Dobbins thing. Same tier here with where Pierce and Madison went. Rank for me Pierce, Madison, Dobbins, Conner. Because they all went within like 7 picks of each other.
Well, so I would definitely put Pierce 1, and then I probably would put Madison over the other 2.
You would put Pierce over Conner?
I think there's a little bit more.
I know you hate Arizona's offense, but what do you like about Houston's offense?
I just like, well, that's a good question because it's pretty bad. I just like Pierce's receiving ability. I think it's smidgy better than Connor's. And he's younger.
Pierce has been playing a lot of third downs in the preseason, so I'm excited about him too. I like the pick. But my pushback would just be we've seen Conner be a receiver before, and Pierce has never done it in the NFL yet.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of James Conner in general. I never really have, and he's one of those guys getting a little older too.
I think Pierce becomes James Conner, sort of where I'm going with this.
I mean, I can see that projection.
He could be anything. He could be James Conner.
Yeah, but I like Madison over Conner. I just think purely for touches. No, not a skilled thing, just purely volume.
Madison's a tough one for me because Madison feels a lot like the dead zone running backs. Remember that year Alex Collins was like a 4th, 5th round pick? Yeah. They just sucked and Gus took his job. I mean, I feel like this happens a lot every year as we get really excited about like RB20 with just a guy, look, who's going to take his job? And then ends up being kind of a middling guy. I don't necessarily think Madison's going to be that, but I love the attack of taking Pierce and Madison back to back. Because while I like Pierce better, and I think Madison's fine, I'm not trying to hate on those 2 picks specifically. My point is when you take 3 through 5 here, 3 running backs, when one of them inevitably is not very good, you still have 2 more.
Exactly, and that's why I like the triple barrel
attack of the running backs
there. And then with the 69th overall pick, we got Drake London go. That's a really good flex option. I think there. You got 2 good flex options with either you got 2 starters each, and then kind of pick your poison. And then just goes and gets Rodgers here in the 7th.
That Houston stack with Dalton Schultz too, baby.
Yeah. And then we'll stop with Tua down here. I don't really like either of the quarterback picks, to be honest with you. I think Rodgers could explode like he did a couple years ago, but I think this Jets team's going to want to run the ball, and I think they're going to play a lot of grinded out kind of games with that defense. I could see Rodgers exploding, but I could also see him only throwing the ball 20 to 25 times a game and doing a lot of control the clock kind of stuff.
We're in lockstep on Rodgers. I think he's fine, but not quite where I would want to take him there. I think Tua is a good pick there, though. And I think I like Rodgers more with Tua just because I actually probably in most weeks early on until I've seen them play assuming Tua is back to Tua,
Hmm.
not concussed Tua, I think Tua
Yeah.
is going to be a top like 10-ish quarterback. And
Yeah, I
then,
agree. I think Tua would be above Rodgers in my starting head right now.
but if he gets hurt, you
Uh,
just play Rodgers.
yeah, not a bad fallback, but yeah, I mean Tua did fall to the ninth, which is kind of surprising considering the offense that he's in.
Agreed.
But it's just the head injury stuff. But Dalton Schultz is a sneaky good pick. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I
It's
was
just a
joking with
matter
the
of
Houston
what
stack thing.
it.
I
Yeah,
think you
no,
like having
it's
a rookie quarterback with a tight end.
absolutely you have to. It's just a matter of is Stroud going to be competent enough to not just suck,
Yeah.
and more so. But and after this, we'll just run down the last couple here: Gibson, Juju, Koo, Tony, Patriots. I like the Zay Jones pick, and then Conklin's probably just a body, but all in all, pretty solid team. Any highlights in these last few?
Of these ones, Tony is my favorite where he went. And it's just because Tony, I feel like kind of early on, you're going to find out either he's overtaken one of MBS or Sky Moore or he hasn't. So I think the worst thing in the world to have is I'm trying to give a good example of one of these players. It's not quite Hunter Renfro, who you liked a lot earlier. I'm not trying to pick on Hunter
Mhm.
Renfro specifically, but I think the worst thing to have in a fantasy football league, especially when we got to be active on waiver wire, is a bunch of guys at the bottom of your bench who are that guy's too good to be on free agency. I want guys who
Yeah,
either I know they're going to be useful players for like my bye weeks, or they're not guys I want to hold. So I think Kadarius Toney is great because either he's going to be hurt, he's going to suck, or he's going to be so good you want to use him sometimes, and that's exactly what I want at the end of my teams.
that's a good point. But all in all, with this draft, I thought this was pretty solid. Maybe could use a running back through trade if these guys don't prove consistency at the top here, especially as the season goes on and how their systems might operate. But I give this one a solid B. I feel pretty good about this team.
This is probably the most different we've been. I gave it a C plus. I don't necessarily
Mm,
hate the B rank for you, but I think besides Chase, I'm not necessarily blown away with any of these guys being a surplus value.
mm.
So I think
You
a
just
straight,
think
I think
more
straight fair
reachy?
value is a C, and this one I think is slightly better because Chase wouldn't have made it to 4. Everywhere else, I'm not
Mm.
saying he did a bad job. I just don't know if I love it. I think it's a team that probably finishes around the playoff.
Yeah, I had him in the playoffs for sure. But do you think it's a little more reachy with some of these picks?
I don't think a single one, honestly, in my mind, is a reach.
Hmm.
I just don't think there's a ton of. There's not many guys who I'm like, oh, it's a great value, Galler. That's all.
I got you. It's like we kind of highlighted like some of those like like great pick, like it's an awesome pick there. Like
Yeah.
not one of these on those teams.
And I want to be really clear too that I'm not saying that in a negative way. Again, there's so much variance in fantasy football. I like the approach of taking those 3 running backs. I just don't think
I do
any of them are
too.
surplus value.
But I think that's a fair statement. I think they're all very, like you said, very fair
There's a good chance
picks,
one sucks, one overperforms, and one is just what you expected. And then when we look at that in a
and
month, we'll
that's
say, oh,
fine.
that worked out. That's
Yeah,
what you want. You want that.
exactly. All right, so moving on here to the number 5 pick, Wuhan Weezer. Clear choice of keeping McCaffrey here. Swings back around, grabs his wide receivers and Higgins and Debo. How do we feel?
I love McCaffrey as a keep. I think McCaffrey, if we were drafting, from scratch, pardon me, in this format, he'd be my 3rd or 4th pick.
Hmm.
And as a result, I love going receiver, follow it up, get yourself some studs. I think Debo is not quite who I would have taken personally, but I don't really think it matters because Debo has been really good. Probably will be good as long as he's healthy. And at worst, he's like wide receiver 15, 16 probably. So I love
Yeah,
the receiver here. The
and
build's
taking
good.
him as your basically wide receiver 2 on this team.
The
That's
build's great.
it's good. It works for me. So I have no complaints there. Miles Sanders in the 4 and Hawkinson in the 5. I like Miles Sanders here. I'm not a fan of the Eagle system. He should be fresher legs, even though he's a little bit older, comparatively, just because of carries on the body. He has a little bit less of guys his age than they typically do. He's going to a team that's probably going to run the ball out with Bryce Young starting and Hawkinson again. Another top 5 guy that's going to just get targets like crazy from Kirko.
Yeah, I think Hawkinson is my favorite at value of any of these picks we've gone over so far on this team. I think Sanders is
Mm-hmm.
fine where he went. I think Sanders is going to be given a lot of commitment because of the contract he got. That's a good thing to have as a running back who got a 4-year contract. He won't probably play the whole thing out. He's not special as a talent, I don't think, but he's very solid. He's on a team, like you mentioned, with a rookie quarterback, decent offensive line, I think an above average offensive line by most people's assessments. And then also the NFC South
Strong
sucks. So I think
defense.
most weeks he'll be involved.
And a strong defense. So you got to think these games they're not going to be getting blown out a ton
Yeah,
either.
it
So
comes down to
that
kind of like we were talking about with Hughes. I mean, I think Bryce Young's going to be a mixed bag, but overall a decent player in his first year. And I think he'll be in games enough that Miles Sanders won't get game scripted out, though, is all I'm saying.
yeah, that's fair. And then goes and gets the connection with Kirk Cousins. I think it's a little early for Cousins, so don't love that for where he took him, but not a terrible pick, not a bad quarterback to have. But here's where this draft kind of goes south for me a little bit. Pittman, Moore, Jacoby Myers, and Michael Thomas. I don't like a single one of these picks.
I actually love
Um,
Michael Thomas where I got him. And I don't think he's going to be healthy. I think there's probably a 20% chance Michael Thomas plays more than half the games this year. But if he does, I'd be shocked if he's not good.
that's a fair point. Out of these four, he's probably the one that I would
And
say
he's a
is
receiver like 5 or 6. So if you don't
yeah.
get anything
So
from him,
it's
so
worth
what?
the risk. I kind of did something similar with my draft. So yeah, it's just if he gets on the field for half the season, and if it's the latter half, then that's good for you for playoff purposes. But Pittman through Myers, I don't like the quarterback situation. I don't know what Sky Moore is, and
I like Sky. He's running in the 2 receiver sets.
I just think the ball goes to Kelsey too much in the air on that team to where you're not going to get any consistency out of there. So I mean, as your 3 to 4 receiver here that was taken, I don't love
Put you on the
that.
hot seat. Who would you flex here week 1 of these guys? Because one of them's going to be his flex.
Yeah, that's well. What are the matchups? That's I guess my cat. Well, I know they got Detroit. Who's Indy got? They have Jacksonville, so I definitely wouldn't pit Pittman. If Thomas is healthy, it's Thomas, but I don't know if he is. So I guess by default it's going to be more Myers. So don't love either option, honestly. But
I'd probably go with Pittman actually. Why am I just maybe a blind spot with Jacksonville's defense? I feel like they're going to be playing catch up.
well, that's true. They will throw the ball more, but it's really what you think if week one with a
AR.
pretty it's just what are you going to get, and it's hard to make that move, but I would say it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing because if Richardson come out and throwing, where's the ball going to get thrown to? It's going to get thrown to Pittman. So yeah, but I would probably lean.
I feel like Pittman and Myers are so safe, and then Moore and Thomas are such high upside
Well, I'll
guys.
cheat. I would put Dalton Kincaid. I'll go
Would
down.
you really?
I don't know. I don't like any of the options to be honest with you. I think it's a
Dude,
crapshoot.
I don't know. I mean, I think Kincaid's exciting, but we just talked about Kyle Pitt. I mean, he had 1,000 yards and he was an underwhelming first year tight end, and then he got hurt last year. Like, what was the last rookie tight end who was actually good?
That's a good point. Mark
There literally
Andrews was
hasn't been one,
okay.
basically.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. No, I mean
But he could be.
Waller
He
wasn't
could
really
be.
a rookie. Yeah, I mean he
Yeah,
definitely could be, but I
I love him in
mean
the last round. It's not me hating on the pick. It's just that
yeah. No, I
I don't
think
know.
Kincaid there is good value, but jumping
I'd
back to
want to see
this,
him do it. Is all I'm saying first.
yeah, I'd have to really kind of sit down and think about this more to answer that question,
It could be
honestly.
Jeff
But
Wilson Jr. if he's the only Dolphins running back who plays. They're all sort of banged up and
he likes
questionable.
Jeff Wilson. He was very excited about this pick, so I think it might be Jeff Wilson Jr.
Jeff
He
Wilson
would say
Jr.
that.
all those years in San Fran is good for
Hmm.
like a month of 2 touchdown games, and now he's still in the Kyle Shanahan offense with his protege. He might be the only running back healthy. Here
Yeah,
comes a couple
and
2 touchdown games.
this was his guy. He was very happy he was there. So
Good pick.
gotta love a guy getting his guy. So I like but yeah, just move it. So to answer your question, I mean, probably just based off of skill, probably Pittman, but I don't love it. Sky Moore
Yeah,
maybe, but moving
it's probably
on.
Pittman for me too.
I don't love saying that, but it is what it is.
I'm with you.
And then
Who
Kincaid,
loves their
and we
flex
just
usually though?
that's a good point. I usually do, but that's because I
That's
love
because
my
your teams are
guys.
always perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then to finish it out here, Elliott, Packers, Higby, and Jimmy. Kind of, nothing burgers,
Yep.
no comments there.
No take from me on any of them.
Yeah. So I think with this team, I think the first 5 rounds are really, really good. Really, really strong team up front here. But you lose me after that. Some reaches, some guys I don't really think are going to contribute much to their teams. That's really about it.
B- for me.
Yeah, I gave it a C plus, so we've
Hmm.
got the same ballpark
Same
there.
area then.
Yep. All right. Well, time to talk about myself, which I say I don't like to do, but sometimes I do.
Let's get into it.
All right. So Nick Chubb fell to me in the one spot, which I was very happy about because I was good with him or Barkley, and I'm happy Chubb. And now that Hunt's not there, it's even better for me. And then got my guy Chris Olave coming back to me in the second. That's who I was eyeing up. If Amon-Ra wasn't there, that's who I wanted. And then rounding out the third, just getting Aaron Jones on my RB2. Didn't love that pick, but he was the right guy on the board to take it that situation, I think.
Yeah, I think I would have taken Chubb in your spot too. Olave is probably right where I would have taken him. I think he was probably the right pick for you. Aaron Jones, I don't love necessarily as much, but I understand wanting to lock up. We've said it already for like half the teams we've already looked over. We don't love the running back 2 or the third running back especially.
Yeah.
So I understand wanting to lock up something you think is secure there at running back.
And even when Aaron Jones is down, I'll take his production as an RB2.
If ETN had made it 2 later picks too, you didn't love ETN before, but would you have
I
taken
would have taken
ETN over Aaron
ETN
Jones?
over Jones.
Me
Yeah.
too. That's the only thing I want to check.
Yeah, and then so I had to go I felt I had to go Herbert in the fourth just because of the QB run. Because after that, we have T Law that was taken after, but after that, it's a pretty hard drop off. So wanted to go and get an upper tier guy there, and then I was ecstatic that Waller fell to me in the fifth. That was a guy that I was eyeing up and was happy he swung back around because since the quarterbacks went so quick, I think the tight ends went a little slower, and I think that really helped me out here with Waller.
I agree a lot with the Herbert process. Herbert I almost took. And I think he rounds out my top 5 or 6, whatever the tier break is at the end there at quarterback. So I think it's a really great pick for you. Waller, I also like. I don't make it sound like I don't. I think he's good value there, but I think Herbert is, especially the way the run was going, an excellent pick.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think with Jones, I think Waller's going to be in a better situation there. I think, and as long as he can stay healthy, I think it's less competitive receiving wise than it would be in Vegas. Christian Kirk in the sixth, Pacheco in the seventh. Those were pretty much. I mean, I like the Kirk pick because he's still going to get a ton of targets even though Ridley's there, and Pacheco was kind of just like what I saw as the best guy on the board at the time. Don't really love it. I'm a little scared of what that running back room in Kansas City's going to do. But as my third running back option, I think it's fine.
I think Pacheco's fine. Kirk, I want to push a little bit on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually love Kirk, or do you just really want a second receiver at that point?
I didn't
Because Kirk
love
worries
him.
me a little bit. Just let me come
Mm-hmm.
from a place that makes sense. There's like Zay Jones was better in the final 6 games than him last year.
Mm-hmm.
Evan Ingram came on really strong and they kept him around. Calvin Ridley's coming in presumably to really be the wide receiver one now. I'm not saying Kirk won't perform at still a useful level, but I don't know if I think he's going to be.
Well, to
I don't
answer
know. I
your
don't love that as your
question,
receiver two is all.
I moved him to my bench for week one, so that kind of answers your
Okay.
question there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I don't hate him by
yeah.
the way in that value. I just don't know if I love him as a second receiver for you as all.
No,
So it sounds like we
I
agree.
agree, and I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna end up being my second because I think I got some good value on some guys like I think Cortland Sutton.
Especially if you end up not having Jerry Judy week one. I would agree with you.
Yeah, I think that's a guy that's going to come out and we'll see what this offense looks like with Russ. But I like that as an option. And then Elijah Moore is kind of one of those dark horse guys I think is going to have a sneaky good season he's an excellent player that just didn't work out with the Jets. And to get him in the ninth, I think that's really great.
He's the archetype I like a lot where again, I think either he's going to be useful for you or he probably won't be useful and he might not even be active after the first month or two on the
Yeah.
downside, and then you're
And
not
he's
going to have to
gone.
hold him. But Sutton, I
This
love. I love the
mhm.
strategy of touching it twice there because, like I said, I don't love Kirk personally. You need to get more receivers in there, give yourself more shots at it.
Yep, exactly. Like we talked about earlier, one of them's going to work out. The Charbonnet pack, I think, is just great value. I think he might take over. Him and Kenny are going to be pretty even, I think, on carries as the season goes out.
Interesting.
I mean, obviously, you go out. Kenneth Walker exploded last year, and then you go out in the second round and draft a running back. What does that tell you? It's
I think they
just
love the player, but I don't know. I think we'll definitely take from Kenneth Walker. I'd be shocked if it's a 50-50 though. But if you do, it's a great pick. I agree with you. And Kenneth
yeah. I
Walker could
mean,
get banged up anyway. All running backs do.
and I have three pretty good options up here already, so I don't really need him to be good. It's just a possibility of it. And
Great
then to
lottery
round it
ticket for
out,
sure.
and I have just Rashad White, also, so it's another option. A lot of volume there, but don't necessarily love it. But had a little fun with Jameson Williams. If the guy can get on the field and not be hurt or gamble his money away,
If you
he
just
can be
stop
really
playing those
good.
parlays, man.
Yeah, he can be really good. Dolchich, I think, is a really good backup. Dobbs, I was shocked he fell to the 13th. He might be wide receiver one in Green Bay this year, in all honesty, and then defense kicker. But any thoughts on these last couple here?
I mean, I think Dobbs is fine where you got him. I don't know if I think he has quite as much upside. Sounds like you do. I want to
The
highlight
target
Jameson Williams, though,
share,
as somebody I was targeting. Yeah,
I
but
did,
target share, how
yeah.
good will the Packers passing offense be, man? Like,
I think Love's going to be good. I'm a big Jordan Love.
you think it'll be really good as a passing offense too?
I think he's going to be
Okay.
really good.
Like top half of the league?
I would if that's probably my bold take of the year. I think he's going to be a top half quarterback this year. He's all reports are he looks good, and the way the Packers seem to do it with quarterbacks up there seems to. You think about it though, because I was talking about this last night with some people. It's you give a guy 3 years to sit behind one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, learn the system, and most of the time, guys who are taken in the first round like that have already touched the field. And teams already evaluated. Look at Darnold, look at Zach Wilson. Those guys are either on new teams or got benched because they were young and learning and they didn't learn fast enough. This guy's had 3 years to learn, and he's a top talent. So that's my sense on Love. But
Yeah.
overall, with my draft, I kind of had a hard time putting a grade on it for myself. But I just said B. I felt good about my team. I think this team can compete. But we'll have to see what kind of happens here. But
I would love to place a friendly little off the pod bet on the Packers being a sub, like 17 or lower passing offense. I think Love will be good personally too. I think it's gonna be a lot more as a runner involved in that. Maybe he ends up being fantasy quarterback 16 or 17 because he runs some. But we'll see. I think they're gonna want to run the ball a lot with Jones and Dillon. Anyway, though, I also gave you a B. I like your team.
okay, fair enough. All right,
Not my
and
favorite, but you're up there. You'd probably a playoff team to me.
that's kind of where I had myself as well. All right, let's find you. You're up. Um, Bucher. All righty, here we go. Henry and Waddle to start. I think that's awesome. Ton of touches, ton of awesome stuff. That's that's really good. I have no issues, no complaints about those players.
Agreed. I think I would have taken either Barkley, maybe Saquon, and maybe Chubb over Henry, but I think he's the last of their tier. So I could not take him
He's
there.
the cutoff for sure.
And Waddle is the only player who's available I liked more than Olave too, for what it's worth, because I took Waddle right before he took Olave.
I think I would have taken Waddle over Olave as well, just because he's a little bit more proven with that.
Sounds like we're kind of in lockstep there.
Yeah. So then Andrews and Walker. I think Andrews is perfectly good in the third round there. Good value. And we kind of talked about Walker. He's really talented. I think beginning of the year, he's going to be really good for you. I just don't know as the season progresses what his target share or snaps are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Chardonnay contributes, but I just think the issue is by the time you get out of the top like 10 to 12 running backs, they're all only getting 60% or less of the carries and touches. Yeah. And I think Walker's going to be on a above average offense. And we've just seen from Pete Carroll this past year with him and also in previous years, he likes his running backs. So I'd be shocked if Walker's not a top 20 running back, even if Chardonnay does contribute. Maybe 25 at worst.
Yeah, he definitely is as a every week starter. It's just with Charbonnet looming, it does, kind of impact it a smidge. Went with DJ Moore here and Deshaun Watson. I like DJ Moore as a player. I don't know what about this Bears passing offense. I think he'll get a lot of looks, but we'll see how he does. And I think
love the DJ Moore pick personally.
Okay,
that's probably my favorite pick of my picks.
Well, explain to me why you feel that way.
Because I think even in a low touchdown environment, he's been in Carolina with very bad quarterbacking generally too, by the way. Not that I think Fields is an incredible passer, but I'd be shocked if he's not getting peppered with targets in a new offense. Even if he's in a lower passing volume offense, being the one receiver is going to be huge. We've seen him already make some plays in the preseason draft capital and the trade that was made to get him. For me, he was a top 20 receiver. I was shocked I almost took him over Kenneth Walker at 42. That may sound crazy, but for me, he's like a very comfortable wide receiver too.
You got your guy.
It sounds like maybe he is. On ESPN, he's a lot lower than I would have had him. But he's been so consistent with terrible quarterbacks the last couple of years. Doesn't really get hurt, which a lot of players do. And I'd be shocked if he's not just as good as he's been the last couple of years, if not better.
That's a lot of good points, I think, there.
And I mean, our guy Fields is going to have to pass for what, like minimum 2,500 yards?
That's fair.
Where's a third of them or half of them going?
Yeah, that's a good point. They ain't going to Cole Kmet because that dude is all or nothing.
Touchdowns.
That's about it.
That's about it, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson, I think in the 6 years, really good. I just with his ability with his legs, I don't know if he's back. He showed signs of being back to his old self late in the year last year, but I still, even with his legs, I think it's a really clear, good pick there. And then Pickens real quick. I think it's a really good option off the bench, kind of see where he develops over the year, because this could be a breakout year for him. I'm not a big believer in Kenny Pickett. Is my only worry for Pickens. But as you said, with DJ Moore, guys can overcome their situations and certain stuff like that.
I don't love Pickens. I just like the value there, and I wanted to have another receiver to contribute. And Watson, I don't love necessarily either. Just he was the end of the tier for me. I hate rooting for him. I don't want to necessarily root for him. Some quarterback I take later maybe shows you I'm not necessarily committed to him being my guy all year. But there's, in my mind, a 30% chance he's back to being what he used to be. And there's probably at least a 50 to 60% chance he's a QB1. So I'll kind of grit through it.
And he's got DTR breathing down his neck too. So you never know. All right, here we go. Here's the fun part. Tony Pollard is keeper, A+. Jahan Dotson, I think it's a really good plug and play option if you need it. And then
I actually like Richardson. I like Dotson basically as much as Pickens. I was shocked Dotson made it that late.
Yeah, I thought about going for him. I think if he swung back to me, I was going to probably go for him. But I think you took him just before I did, because I was it
was one pick before you, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was looking at him before I went, but and then AR-15, I am a big fan because worst case, he's running the shit out of the ball.
I think he is probably not going to be my week 1 starter, but I think it's even money if he overtakes Watson for me. And there's also
Yeah,
some
no,
upside here. I think we'll get to it in a second, but there's some level of I want to make sure I have options for keeper next year. Let's say Tony Pollard gets hurt because running backs always get hurt, or he just sucks. I want to be, thinking big picture. Richardson could definitely be Fields from last year, somebody who I love the option of keeping. I don't know if you want to keep a quarterback necessarily all the time, but I think the
if
sky
he
is the limit basically.
if yeah, I mean Richardson's ceiling is a Jalen Hurts type, which
Yeah.
is obviously very high.
The
So
most realistic
I
outcome probably is that he's a QB2 this year, and I end up just using him in my bye week. But
yeah,
I think there's a 10 to 20% chance he's just incredible. He's Cam
and he
Newton, the rookie, or
booms.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Warren pick. I think that he's going to get a sneaky amount of the volume because Najee is not good at football. That's that. That's so I like
And
the
a year from
Warren pick.
now, the Steelers might not pick up Warren's option. They might trade or cut Warren, and then, or pardon me, Najee, because I agree with you. Najee's not. He's going to be good in fantasy because he's going to get fed a lot.
He gets
I
all the
think.
touches, but yeah,
But I don't think he's a good real life player, and I think Warren could be this year's Tony Pollard.
I think that's a real possibility. And then just kind of round it out here: McPherson, Raven, Spears, going with some of the rookies here. I see Murray and Bigsby. I think I like the Spears handcuff just in case Henry goes down. Kyler, I'm not quite sure what you're thinking there, and I love the Tank pick. I think Tank's a stud. I think he like I said earlier with ETN. I think Tank by midseason could be getting 15 carries a week.
I think Tank's going to be awesome. I think Tajay is good even without Derrick Henry, but I like him too. Same deal with Warren. I think there's a chance one of them ends up being a guy next year who is really useful for keeping. Same with Kyler, though. Let's talk on Kyler real quick. So you don't think Kyler is an
I'm
interesting
not a
pick there in
believer in
keeping?
Kyler. I mean, fantasy football wise, he's good,
Yeah, when has
but
he ever been bad in fantasy football?
that's a good point. He's
He's never
cool,
not
but
been a QB1.
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, if you're looking at that, I mean, obviously, if and especially if Richardson and Watson aren't what you think they are, and late in the year, he's going to get you points with his legs. So, I mean, I don't hate it. I just 3 quarterbacks in a draft is a lot, and I don't think anybody was going to draft Kyler. I could be wrong, but
I would have been shocked. Maybe I'm just not, understanding your league fully, but in my mind, Kyler should have gone before this by a couple of rounds. I waited because I already had 2 quarterbacks. But you also have an injured spot, man. So it's not
that's
Kyler's
true.
already
Yeah,
there. I'm getting a free player off waivers on Monday.
right. Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Because you can just, yeah, that's what Ryan said when we were drafting. He's like, well, he can just throw him right on the IR and just not even worry about it.
And
But
by week 15, there's no chance Richardson, Deshaun Watson, and Kyler all play for me. But one of them is going to probably be like the 7th or better best quarterback in those playoff matchups. I'm pretty confident in that. Maybe probably Kyler of the 3, if I had to guess, assuming he comes back,
yeah,
he's anything close to what he used to be. So I don't know. I like him a lot. It's interesting you don't really feel that way.
I'm just not a. I think I'm just not a big fan of the real life player. But fantasy
Yeah,
wise,
this is
you're right. He
fancy.
does have a lot more upside. Yeah, you're right. So I'll change my tune a little bit with that. But I'll say this is really strong team, really good backfield. You need one of these receivers to kind of break out. Like, I mean, I think you believe in. Yeah, I think you believe
Sounds
in
like I
DJ
like more than
Moore.
you do, and more than
I
ESPN does
mean,
too. By the way,
yeah, I mean, I think he's extremely talented as a player. I just don't know what this Bears offense is going to look like. That's really all my concern is with him
definitely a
is just
question mark. Yeah,
how many times they're going to throw the ball is really just more so opportunities because he's on a team that they might only throw the ball 15 times a week, whereas other teams are going to throw it 30, 40 times. So just sheer opportunity. But I mean, you got plenty of guys here in the wings that could pop, and I think this team's really strong. I gave you a B+. I think you're probably more of the upper echelon of the league as far as teams go.
I had me at an even B, so we're kind of on the same page there. I think I'm a playoff contender.
And I liked your it's fun. You like some of your players more, but I like your team more.
It is
Um,
funny how that worked out. Yeah,
yeah. All right. Here's the next one here. Rock Boys with he. Thank him for coming out. He drove over an hour to come hang out with us. It was really nice of him to do. First round pick. Eckler, kind of slam dunk, no brainer. Could have kept Kelsey with the second round pick, but I definitely understand the reasoning to keep Eckler. Goes CD, wraps around, takes Josh Allen, which I have no problem with. And then we'll stop there because that's when things kind of change for me. But first 3, I think, are pretty solid.
CD was a fantastic value. CD is the guy when we talk about where I took Waddle and you took
Olave.
Olave. Lamb is the other guy in the tier with the 3 of them for me, and I actually like him maybe personally as much as Olave or more. So I think getting him that late is awesome. I think it was a great pick getting him there. Eckler's a fine keeper. I would have gone Kelsey personally, just because
I
you
would have
save around
too.
a value. But it doesn't really
Me
matter
too.
that much. If you want the running back, He's RB1 or 2, depending what you think of McCaffrey. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't go wrong with keeping Austin Eckler, especially at the eighth overall pick. That's
Yeah.
still because he's going top three every other draft pretty much.
And Allen in the third, I agree with you again. I don't want to stress what I already talked about with Mahomes, but I love and wish I hadn't been priced out of a third, fourth round quarterback. I know it's kind of it's a bit, I think, the late round quarterback, but in a one quarterback league after the second round or so, I think especially if you feel good about your ability to work waivers, you want to fill quarterback and tight end.
Yeah. This is where this kind of like the Kamara one. I think this was an extreme reach for a multitude of reasons. I think just because of the suspension for one, you're missing 3 weeks. And he's older. He's definitely regressed as a player.
Yeah, I don't want to pile on. I wouldn't take Kamara there either. I think there's a reasonable case he gets a lot of touchdowns when he comes back. But he hasn't had a 30-yard run last couple years. He's 29 now. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about the age because kind of like Eckler, he didn't necessarily get a bunch of carries early on in his career. His wear and tear is lower. I'm not necessarily as worried about him getting injured more than another running back would be.
And
It's
I think
worse.
that
I think the
offense is
Saints'
going to be
offense is
better.
going to be great.
I think the Saints offense is going to be better than it was last year.
I agree with you,
Derek
but I don't
Carr
think it's
there.
like it's not top 10. It's not top 12. I
No,
don't think.
it's borderline
It's a
now.
middle line of the league passing offense.
Yeah,
Or
I think
rushing offense too.
Kamara's okay. I as with Eckler there, I think it's fine as an RB2 option, but he just scares me a little bit.
Well, the bigger
As
issue
far
I think
as
too is even with the suspension. Sorry to interrupt you, but I mentioned I think he'll score touchdowns, and I do think he'll score some touchdowns. But that's sort of been what buoyed his value last couple of years. And Jamal Williams is not going to be anything other than
he's going
at
to get
least
carries,
splitting goal line work with you after what he did last year.
and he's going to get a lot of the first and second down runs too. I think.
So I think Kamara is not a great running back too, but I also get if he's your guy there, you need to get a running back. I wouldn't have taken him personally. There's other running backs available I would have taken, but if he's your guy, I get it.
Yeah. And I think he even set up the pick ET. I think I'll reach for that one a little bit, but gets back on track with McLaurin. I think that's a really good pick. Wide receiver one, and him and Hal seem to have a connection. So you know that Bieniemy is going to scheme up getting him the ball a lot. So I like that pick. Marquise, he did well last year when he was on the field. He's the only option on that team to catch the ball, so that's fine. It's just a matter of, do you think that they're going to be able to get him the ball with the quarterback play they're going to have before Kyler gets back? Is really my question.
Yeah, I like the Terry pick. I would have taken him there a little bit earlier too, so I think it's a good pick. Marquise is right around where I would have taken him, but I think it makes sense to take two receivers there since you have CD, nothing else at receiver yet. I think it's fine.
That's true. I think you could have flip flopped McLaurin and Kamara, and I think I would have liked it more. But
yeah, I think Kamara and McLaurin probably both should have been around pick 50. So you save some value on McLaurin, gave up a little bit on Kamara in my mind.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Goes out and gets Montgomery and then Njoku. Montgomery, I think, is another one of those guys that's going to do pretty good beginning of the year and then just kind of fade. Because they drafted Gibbs top 12, 13, so they're going to give him the ball a lot. And then Njoku, I think, is perfectly fine. He seems to have the injury bug a little bit, but
I think Montgomery's going to be really good. I liked him a lot in this spot, especially knowing Kamara won't play early on. I think Montgomery is probably going to be Jamal Williams plus from last year. He's going to probably get a lot of the goal line work, most of the first, second down work as the year goes on. I think Gibbs will be great. He's going to be Swift plus. I think they're basically going to be what they were last year.
Just a little bit better in the backfield.
And I think you don't have to worry about a third hand. I forget what the guy's name was. I'm blanking. If you remember what it was, who was the third running back last year? Was it Justin Jackson?
He definitely got some carries. They kind of bounced around different guys, I think, in that situation. But
I think they're both going to be good. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no. So I just think season wise, I think Gibbs is just going to earn more field time. Is really what I think.
For sure, I think it's kind of like a better version of AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, though. I think the Lions are going to be like,
well, they're going to be good.
Necessarily top 5, but definitely top 10 offense.
They're going to be good. I think
a lot of scoring to happen there.
Yeah. Then just and talk about, I think Cowboys defense a little early on the trigger there. Myers is the kicker, finishes the starters. I think that's early for I personally am not a fan of drafting defense and kickers early. I think you can get perfectly fine players with your last picks. That's just my personal opinion.
You're leaving Brian Robinson or guys like that in the field here.
Yeah. OBJ could be deep value if he pops. Boyd, Russ, Juwan Johnson. I had to look up who Jalen Reed was. And
I actually like Jaden Reed.
Oh, you do?
I think Jaden Reed's going to have a chance to contribute. Especially, you probably really should, man. If you think the Packers' passing offense is going to be good. Yeah, I'm not saying it to be funny. I do think he's going to be potentially a deep. He feels like a good Romeo Dobbs or Christian Watson this time of year type sleeper. I really like from this set of guys, though. It's the least flashy of them, probably, but both Tyler Boyd and Russ. Because name me the last time a quarterback that started the whole year under Sean Payton wasn't good in fantasy. I got burned by Russ last year. I'm not saying Russ is going to cook again, but if Russ isn't like the 13th best quarterback at baseline and maybe like top 10, I would be very shocked if he doesn't contribute that way. And Boyd, I think is great because, like I said, I want my bench guys to be guys where either I hate having a bunch of guys who are flex worthy. And Boyd, while he might be flex worthy most weeks, he's kind of capped. But if
Yeah,
Jamar Chase or Higgins get hurt, you know you want to play him. And then I think he's a
right.
great handcuff that way. Plus,
That's
during bye
fair.
weeks, he's fine playing as your third receiver.
That is true. I definitely would say of those, Boyd is my favorite of the take, just because you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. But all in all, with this team, I think there's a fair amount of misses and over drafts. And especially with some of the guys like we talked about that are he's going to need as contributors. Their value might go down as the year goes on. So I give this one a C minus because I just this team will be able to put some points up, but I just don't see overall like long term success with these players.
I went C even, so we're kind of in the same page. I think I like it slightly more than you.
Yeah, I'm not too high on this one. Let's see. All right, moving on. We're almost done. We got three left, I believe.
Let's do it.
Uh, we got the Milkman coming in hot. Josh Jacobs with the number one, which I thought he went a little early. I don't hate the pick, but I think he definitely could have got a upper echelon receiver with that 9 spot. And I think that would have been the better play to go because he had Amon Ra last year, and to re up Tyreek Hill and Amon Ra, I would definitely sign up for that. Or like the guys talked about, CD, Waddle, AJ Brown, like any of those guys, I think I would have valued them over Josh Jacobs.
Milkman, I don't know what the thought process was because I think you probably went into it with the plan. You took no running backs after this for a little bit, so maybe you wanted to go sort of hero running back. And if that's the case, Jacobs was excellent last year. We just got recent news he's reporting, so I think he's sort of buried on ESPN and most of these drafting sites as being a lower pick. For me, now that I know he's going to be there week one and it's a contract year, I think he'll get fed again. I think I'm fine with it where he got him. It sounds like maybe you're a little bit more concerned about him than I am at this pick. I think with who was there, he's
I
probably in the
think
tier with the receivers.
I think player wise, he's very good. I mean, I think he's like the upper of the second tier of running backs. I think kind of value like right
Where's your
after
first tier
Henry.
end though? Because I think he's like
Probably
the eighth
Hen
best running back.
probably probably Henry is probably where I would end it. Those
Oh, okay. No, we mostly agree then. But Henry
the
was gone because I took Henry already.
right. So, but I'm saying I think Amon Ra's gonna have a monster year, and I would have kind of rather valued him, for example, in this spot over Jacobs. That's all.
I think it's completely
Uh,
defensible, but knowing I had Tyreek as my second, I probably would have taken a running back two to not get stuck being in the third round and my RB1 hasn't come off the board yet. I think it makes
that's
sense.
that's fair. I mean I don't think
I don't
it's
know
a
if that's what
bad.
Milkman was thinking, but I think it makes sense if I was in the spot.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad pick. I just think there's better value. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting a guy who's going to be a top 12 running back in the league.
We already sort of
Uh,
established too, like in the mid 30s, you didn't love ETN as an RB1. So that's probably who you're going to, and ETN would have gone a pick before this too, I think, based on the number.
yeah, that about. So it would have kind of, yeah. So yeah, I mean,
Aaron Jones would have been gone first. ETN probably is gone. ETN was like
yeah.
28
So
overall.
again, the pick makes sense. I just don't love it as far as what was also. That's all, but it makes sense. I mean, with what he, I was with,
It's like
especially
cough
with the second
medicine.
pick
If you're
one.
sick, you don't want to taste it, but you kind of have to
Right.
taste it at the
Yeah,
end to see a team you
exactly. You
like.
just kind of have to take the guy. Goes
Yeah.
Amari Cooper, Justin Fields, 3 to 4. I like Amari. I think that's a good pick. I think he gets a good target share in that offense, and I Fields is a slam dunk. That was easy pick
I liked
there.
both picks.
Yeah. And then I think probably his best pick is I was eyeing up Deontay swinging back to me in the fifth before, but he went, and I think he's gonna have a huge year. I think I think that's a great pick there in the fifth round to maybe get probably your wide receiver two here.
I like Deontay too. I had Deontay last year, and I was in on Deontay at this value too. You like Deontay, or you like my guy DJ Moore more? They went in the same area.
I would have preferred Deontay over DJ Moore.
What does
Just
Deontay do better than DJ Moore?
uh proven targets.
When has DJ Moore not been a 1,000-yard receiver?
I just know I know how Deontay and Pickett are going to play together. I don't know how Fields and Moore are going to play together. So risk wise, it's a little.
Because we saw half a year Kenny Pickett where Deontay Johnson couldn't get a red zone target.
I just prefer Deontay just purely because he gets the ball a shit ton.
I think they're going to have
And
a little bit of a better passing offense, but I don't think he's a
mhm.
better player. And I think targets are I'm sorry, I'm making this about my guy again, and that's not my
I
goal
think,
here. I
well,
think
no,
I
I
think it's a
think,
good pick by Milkman. I'm just saying
mhm,
it's an interesting
yeah.
thing to hear you say you like this pick and you were not as sold on DJ Moore, because I think they're the same kind of player basically. Is all I'm
I
trying to
think
get to.
DJ Moore's more talented than Deontay Johnson. I just think their scheme and their system is favors Deontay over DJ Moore, is all I'm saying.
We can agree to disagree a little bit. I think it's
Yeah.
also risky because Fryermuth is going to take more than I think Komet will in this
Mm,
offense, and also I think Pickens is better than anybody at number 2 that you're going to have to worry about in Chicago's offense too.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, we could probably go back and forth on that
Yeah,
for a
and they
while.
went in the same area, so it's not really worth poking a hole
Yeah,
now. I love
yeah,
my value there. I like this value too. I love taking Deontay Johnson,
right.
probably actually right
I
here
don't think
too.
either one's bad. I
Yeah,
think they're both good.
over under 4.5
But
touchdowns for Deontay this year.
that's a toughie.
I would take
uh,
the over. Touchdowns aren't
I
they're
was gonna
fluky.
say I lean the over because that's just having zero. There's gonna be a swing back to the mean a little bit there.
You know, in like week 2, he's going to have a 2 touchdown game just to get right.
Yeah, maybe three. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll
Mike
be a joke.
Evans here in the 6 and Khalil Herbert. I think these are both really good value spots for both these guys. Herbert
Love both those picks.
getting a guy who's going to be the RB1 in the room in the 7th round is awesome. Kind of surprised he lasted that long. And Evans, you don't have he's your wide receiver 4 on this team. You don't need to rely on him, but if you can, he could pop for 30 points. So it's nice you don't have to play him every week because he's definitely gone weeks where he's a dud. But I think here it's really good.
It's not a great quarterback situation, but Evans has never been bad either. So,
Yeah, and
excuse
he
me, I
played
love
with
that
some
one.
bad ones before Brady and before Jameis was even there. He had some roughies.
Herbert went in a spot where I definitely would have been interested in him too. I like him there.
Yeah,
You're really sold on him being the running back because I feel like them bringing in Donta Foreman, he's going to steal a bunch of the first down work. And then I worry about Roshan Johnson being a good pick in the middle rounds. They took an NFL draft, maybe eating into it down the stretch too.
well, he's got the handcuff ready to go. So
Right, but
that's
if I
but yeah,
draft the second and third running back on any team, I don't want to play one of them each week.
that's true. I mean, I don't necessarily think Donta is going to be the is going to cut into it too much. I think Herbert's super explosive in the passing game, so I think that's really where his good value is for him.
I
But
hope you're right. I saw him drop a pass this most recent preseason game though,
he's
and if
just
they
so explosive
potentially,
with the ball in his hands in space. That's as he's
but how much will they be
it's
passing to running backs? They didn't pass much running backs last year, and also we just said a little bit ago you think Fields won't pass much.
that's true. Yeah, I
I
mean, but
like
I
Herbert
think
here. I'm being a little bit critical of the
yeah,
pick in a way I'm
yeah.
not
No,
intending
I
to
just
be.
think when I think with Fields
I think it's just cap is
too.
all I'm saying. There's no
Yeah,
chance in my mind he's an RB1 or even an RB
no,
like
not
top
at all.
12. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. He's a firm RB2 at best case scenario, which I think is really good for your 7th round pick.
agreed.
Um,
And
and
Dylan, I
then
love going tap back to back with him too, because Dylan, I think, especially if Aaron Jones were to get dinged up, I think Dylan becomes a top like
oh, sure,
15
and
running
yeah,
back.
absolutely. And even if he's not, he's still a guy you can plug in and play and not hate your life.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't like Chig as your tight end 1. I think he's a boomer bust guy. He's an awesome, talented player. I just week in, week out, is he going to get you? Because this is kind of where that tier of tight ends ended. And like now you're getting guys that are going to flash one week and be nothing the next week. And this is definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, I think Chig's best is like a bench tight end where you wait and see. He's sort of like Dalton Kincaid, but a year later, where he could be really great, but I think you're likely right that he might not be initially. Especially, I don't think Tannehill's going to throw a ton of tight ends. And if it's not
Mm-hmm.
Tannehill, I don't like the offense more anyway. That said, it's a decent pick in the sense that you didn't invest much in tight end. When the tight end who comes out and gets 7 targets week 1 comes out on waivers, you just buy him.
Well, who was that guy? Julian Thomas on the Broncos.
Julius
That one
Thomas,
year, week 1
or
he
Chig ends up
torched
being good because
them.
Chig is a freak. Chig could be good.
He's extremely talented.
I'd put it like 40-60. He ends up being useful all year, and if he is, you hit really well.
Yeah, no, I think I just wish I had another tight end on this team.
Yeah,
Is all. If with
I
Chig as
feel you
your
on
guy, then rounded out Bills, Rondell Moore, which I think is pretty solid value there. Even though he's on the team that I don't like. Bass, Roshan, Jerome Ford. I don't really get what we're doing there. I mean, is he RB2 in Cleveland?
He's the yeah. I was gonna say I think it's fine. He's the handcuff.
I didn't know. I wasn't sure if he was the
If
number
Chubb
2.
gets hurt,
But
and Chubb's had some injuries the last couple of years, so you have most
yeah,
likely the RB1 in Cleveland. I think it's smart.
that's fair, and especially at the 14, that's fine.
Yeah, there's no bad
And then
pick this late either.
yeah, no, it's you're throwing darts. Stafford and Mingo.
Love the Roshan pick.
Yeah,
and I also want to be really clear again. I like Khalil Herbert fine where you got him, but I think there's a better chance in like the 10% title outcome for both that Roshan ends up being the one you end up using more often. That's all.
I
So
think
love
as the
Roshan
season
there.
goes on, Roshan might be the guy that ascends a little bit.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, overall with this team, I think it's definitely a playoff team, definitely competitive. I went with a B to a B minus here. Like there are some picks that I really like, but I think he's going to get torched in the tight end room as it stands. with some of these guys he's going to face, and it's going to be 8 to 10 point swings some weeks where he's just losing out. But I mean, he can make up for it with Fields because we know Fields can put up 50 or 60. I don't love the running back room. I mean, like even though I like Herbert there, it's still some weeks you might get 3 points out of him, which
It's so funny how similar we are here because I also said B minus, but you didn't love the Jacobs pick. I'm giving a lot of grief to the Herbert pick, even though I actually really like where you got him, and it sounds like we mostly agree on what we think Herbert's going to be. So I think it's a team that doesn't look fun when you're drafting it, but I think it's going to be a good team.
I think it's definitely a playoff, sneak in the playoff on the bottom half kind of guy there. But anyway, moving on to where'd it go? Technical difficulties. Where is he? There he is. I'm on a new level. Cap Justin Jefferson, slam dunk. Turns around against Amon Ra, another slam dunk.
Love it.
Najee, don't love it because I just don't like him as a player, but he gets a ton of touches, so you can't argue with that too much.
Yeah,
And then
Najee's like
Joe
spicy
Burrow,
James Conner.
yeah, basically.
They both were in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he'll get you 25 touches. They won't be good touches, but he'll get you them. Joe Burrow, quarterback run perfectly fine.
Yep.
Horrified of this pick just because guy's knee was completely shattered last year. We saw how Dobbins came back with this similar injury, so don't know. And I believe he did get the Samaje Perine handcuff, so it makes his pick a little bit better. But that's a little scary. And Judy too, like guy seems to have injury problems. Super awesome player. So good value there in the 6th round, I think, but as a third receiver option. But the Javonte kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of different insight there. I think Judy I like a little bit more than where he went. Actually, it's interesting here. I know he's banged up a little bit. Might miss
I
week
think
one
he's
even.
better than a 6th round pick.
Yeah, if you flip him, I like it more though because I agree with you. I think Javonte has a chance to be really good down the stretch if he comes back and looks healthy. But I think I'm probably playing one or both of P Ryan or Cook over him. At least, even if he starts early on, I'm not going to trust it until I see it.
Well, and that's kind of what makes this pick not as bad is because he did get the P Ryan handcuff. So, and we know P Ryan can be serviceable as a
Yeah, P Ryan
lead
was
back.
useful even when Mixon played last year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's perfectly fine. Takes a swing at Dalvin Cook here. I think that's just a swing. I think he'll be productive in this offense. I think as the season goes on, it's going to be the Brees Hall show. So he's going to have to take a backseat to him on that. But early in the year, I think it's going to be really good while you figure out the Javonte.
I was just going to say
situation.
exactly that. It's great team building, and that Dalvin's best games are probably coming September, October.
Yeah, that gets you off to a hot start, and then but it's especially with these receivers up top. But Evan Ingram, awesome pick in the 8th round. I think
Love
that's
that one there. Yeah,
that's a great pick. That
noteworthy
guy's
in my mind too.
touchdown machine.
Zach Ertz too, by the way. I know you hate Arizona, but he's coming up in a sec down there. I would play Ingram over him, but Zach Ertz was like, whether it was with Kyler or Colt McCoy or whoever last year, he was back to being almost peak Zach Ertz, and I don't know how he's healthy, but he seemingly might not miss any time.
Well, and my only concern with Ertz is I think McBride was their 2nd round pick 2 years ago, so I think they're going to want to get Trey McBride on the field a little bit more.
Maybe.
But yeah,
but I don't know. You signed Zach Ertz to he's on a decent contract. If he says he's healthy and wants to go out there, I think he's going to command over him. We'll see.
Yeah.
I like it where you got him though.
Yeah. And then just kind of going down here, I think the Geno value is awesome. No, he had Burrow, but that's awesome QB too.
Especially if let's say there's a non-zero chance Burrow misses a game or two early on. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could happen. You're very happy with Geno.
Absolutely. Yeah, you had him last year and your team was quite successful. So then we finish off with Gallup.
This team's
here.
all like mine last year. A lot of Broncos, Javonte, all the Broncos receivers, and then also Geno.
Yeah. It's a strong team. Gallup, Thielen, Dicker, the kicker, and then Osborne. I think this is a guy that could actually end up being a starter because I know they love him in the slot. But all in all, this team is probably the team to. It's funny, same owners last year. That was the team to beat, but I think this is probably the team to beat just because Jefferson and Amon Ra are probably going to drop a 50, 60 spot on you every single week. So I gave this one. This was my A. I gave it A minus just for the fact that I don't love the running back room, but I think these receivers can carry.
We haven't really disagreed too much on any of these. I had a B plus here. It was one of my favorite teams too. But I was on the B plus margin. I'm not trying to pick too many holes on it, but yeah, I'm a little bit more concerned with the running back depth if Javonte doesn't come back well, because I don't think Dalvin Cook's gonna be someone you want to start down the stretch.
I
I like
agree.
the two tight ends, but I don't think either Ingram or Ertz is going to be a top like 6 or 7 tight end in the best circumstances. And if Najee either lost his job or got hurt, I really would hate the running backs here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this kind of comes from a bias because I think Amon-Ra might, I absolutely love his game, and I think he could be a top 5 guy in receiving this year.
You've got the best 1-2 at receiver, I think, or the second
Hmm.
best, if not the
And
best.
and that's and that can
And you have
kind
one of
of
the top 5 quarterbacks too. It's a good team.
and again with Harris, just the sheer volume. You don't need flashy 20-point games out of your running back with these two receivers up top. So I'm a big fan of this team. I think you and this team are probably the two teams to beat in my mind.
Like I said, I
Um,
had it at the B
yeah,
plus margin. So I'm with you. I think it's a
yeah,
good team. I think it's a playoff team.
absolutely. All right, here's the one that everyone has been waiting to see. Pro Cells Cooper Cup. It's a nutsack if I can figure out how the slider works. All right. Well, Cooper Cup is
So
for
again,
keeper.
granted, I would have kept from last year's team someone other than Cooper Cup too. Once you
Sure.
have, do you like Cooper Cup as the 11th overall pick? It's a pretty
If
big
he's on the
advantage, I
field,
think.
absolutely. I mean, again, you can't really bank on injuries, but if he's on the field, plays every game, absolutely, slam dunk pick.
In games where Cooper Cup has not scored a touchdown in his career of the last 44 games healthy, so the last 44 games he's played over like 3 or 4 seasons now, where he has not scored at least one touchdown. He's had a lot of touchdowns, but in those, what is that, 39 and 44, 5 games, he averages almost 100 yards a game. He is such
Yeah,
a rock solid, safe guy, assuming he's going to play. And
right.
everybody could get hurt. It's fantasy football.
Yeah, I like I said before with the hamstring guys, I just get really nervous about them just because seems to be a reoccurring thing, and with just as guys get a little older, and those things tend to tighten up and pop a little bit more. Um,
He's definitely one of the more
so
injury prone receivers, but what would you say the injury risk is? 50-50? Less, more?
I would not expect him to play more than 12 games this year at the absolute peak.
Okay, you're more pessimistic than I am then. I would say, and maybe Purcell feels differently, maybe everybody feels differently. I think though you sort of need it's the same reason McCaffrey's the RB1, by the way.
Yeah,
Like McCaffrey missed 2 straight years of nothing and just showed last year why even when he gets traded, even when he's missed 2 straight years, he's still
he's
worth
the
being a
dude.
top 5 pick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
Uh,
mean, again, if Cup plays the majority of the season, slam dunk first round pick. No issues there for me.
yeah.
I
Let's
did
move on
have
though.
some
Sorry, I didn't want to
issues.
pick at it too
Oh
much.
no, that's fine. No, again, that's not a bad person to have there as your first round pick. It's just we agree on that.
Yeah.
Going next, Joe Mixon. I don't like that pick.
Yeah, I don't like this one at all. This is one of my least favorite second round picks. I think you reached on
Yeah,
Mixon. I love the cup more than it sounds like Matt does, but Mixon I would not have taken here.
yeah. I think there was much better players available here to really round out a receiver room at least, or I mean, and then we're going back to the same conversation about the 30 to 40 running back situation. Mixon, I think his role is gonna get a little more reduced. They have a lot of young guys in that backfield they're gonna want to use. So I don't love that where he took them. I had here Amon-Ra, Lamb, Olave, Waddle, the guys we talked about. All those guys are elite. I think they're in a category above Mixon's.
I agree with you. I think he probably wanted a running back just so you didn't get priced out if you missed running back until the third or fourth round, late in the third round. So I don't hate the structure to want a running back there,
Sure.
but I think there were a couple running backs there I would have taken over him. Is all I'm saying.
Who would be the running back that you might have taken over him, for example?
I didn't write down who they would be. Do you mind just checking real quick who the
Yeah, I
running backs you
can.
want immediately afterwards are? I'm sorry you're putting me on the spot. I don't have
Oh,
an answer
no,
for
you're
you,
good here.
but there was at least 1 or 2 other ones I
Let's
preferred
see. He went
personally.
right here. So the next one after was Ramondre.
Ramondre, I would have taken over him. JT, I would have been torn on, and then there's one more. ETN, I also would have
ETN.
taken over him.
Okay. So you think he went around too early, basically, is what I heard.
I think Mixon's a second round pick. It's just a case of I would have taken him later in the second round personally, and you didn't have the option to
Gotcha.
do it because you want to get a running back. It seems like
Yeah.
my mind is probably just went into saying I need to get a running back no matter what here.
I think that was his thinking. Yeah. So
And if Mixon's your favorite, I get it. Get your guy. You're on the turn. But again, I would not have made the pick there. Where would you have
sure.
taken Mixon, Matt? Are we super different there? 'Cause I would have taken Mixon probably as like the 20th pick, 21st pick. He's a late second round
I
pick in
would
my
have
mind.
taken him probably like kind of like you said where Ramondre went late second or early third,
Yeah.
where that ETA like in that 8-9 pick realm later.
Yeah, Ramondre was the one I couldn't
like
remember
that.
who I definitely would have preferred. And ETN's like in the same tier. Probably honestly not that different than like Aaron Jones even too.
Yeah, I kind of have Mixon in that world of player, and I even wrote in my notes here. Mixon and JT and Stevenson are kind of the same build. It's not bad, but
we also hated seeing no running backs until after the first 2 rounds on most of these teams. So I
that's
get
true.
from a team building standpoint, same way in round 3 taking Najee before, I get it if this is what you want to do.
Right. Moving on with Hurts here. I'm, perfectly fine pick, good pick there, good quarterback to have.
I think there's a very even 1, 2, 3 at quarterback this year, and he's third. So great job getting the
yeah,
third one there. I actually
yep.
think I'd lean a little bit of it being a plus value.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's perfectly fine, especially with the wide, like I said before, the wide receiver stuff or the quarterback stuff went. Just going and getting ahead of the curve there a little bit and getting your guy. Keenan Allen, I've never been a big Keenan Allen guy. Another hamstring homie that can't stay on the field with those injuries.
Yeah, I think I'm more in on Keenan Allen than you are. Keenan Allen was really, really good. He was like a league winner down the stretch last year when he came back from his injury. But I think he is, when he's healthy, he's almost like Cooper Kupp Jr., man, where when he's
Oh yeah,
playing, he's always going to be someone you feel comfortable starting. And if
sure,
he stays healthy and plays most of the games, you're pretty happy you took him here at the fourth round.
sure.
I would have probably
Oh,
gone with a different player here and tried to find a running back I liked, personally.
mhm.
But I love the Hurts pick. I think Allen is fine there. It sounds like you really don't like Allen. I like Allen fine there. That's
I've
about
never
where I would
been
have
a
taken him.
Keenan Allen. Again, when you like you said, when he's on the field, he's very good, and I have no argument there. It's just when he's on the field is where that statement really kind of starts and ends for me because he's always hurt. It seems like every year he's always missing extended time, and if your team's not strong enough to withstand that time, you're missing the playoffs and you miss the good part. So
I would
that's
just
kind of
argue he's
my.
been a wide receiver one more than he's not the last, I think, 3 or 4 years now, basically with Herbert every single time.
Oh yeah,
And
he's his
you're getting
favorite
him in the fourth
target for
round.
sure.
He's not like your number one receiver.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I
again,
don't
he's
know. We,
he's a
we
good
don't have to spend too much
player.
time on Keenan. Yeah,
Yeah, again, the injury stuff for me, I really don't mess with too
sure.
much. But James Cook is RB2. I don't like it. I don't like Buffalo's running back room, like the way
Interesting. I like James Cook more than you do too, I think, that sounds like.
I like him as a player. I didn't like Devin Singletary last year. I just don't like how Buffalo manages their backfield. They throw the ball so much out of the shotgun. And James Cook is probably one of the better players to have in that system. He'll get plenty of touches, but I just am not in love with him in this system. It's more so the system than him, I would say.
It's funny. I feel like a lot of the running backs we've talked about who weren't like top 10 running backs, basically, we either hate the system or we
Yeah.
hate the player or we hate the
Right.
offense. Like Najee or James Conner or a lot of these guys. I
Yeah.
think James Cook is a player who, I don't know, man. Like if he just gets some of Damian Harris's goal line stuff, we're just sort of assuming Damian Harris takes the goal line stuff. If he doesn't, and Singletary scored some touchdowns last year, I think James Cook is better than Singletary. And the Bills are top like 3 or 4 offense in football. So I think it's a good RB2.
You're just have to suffer through a couple of 4 or 5 point weeks with James Cook. I think is my worry as your RB
Yeah.
two.
But at pick 59, that's the case for basically
Sure.
everybody you're going to take.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not the guy that I would have. I don't know who I would have wanted there, but I don't know if it was James Cook. But Mike Williams, I think, is a perfectly good pick, especially with having Keenan Allen there. If Keenan Allen's out, Mike Williams absolutely ascends into being a top guy. So no qualms there. Fryer moves in the seventh. Again, no qualms. Good player, good pick. No
I made
issues
similar
there.
notes. Don't spend too much time on. I think Williams was a good
Yeah.
pick there. I think Fryer Moose is an excellent tight end pick there.
Yep.
Too early in the defense, though.
Niners.
I know it's the number one defense, but too early in the defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could have got these guys. Well, I looked at it because Ryan did take Eagles defense in the ninth round, so I don't know if like he did that because a defense went already. Like I
I
don't know
think
if
he
that
probably
changed his
did, but
strategy. But yeah,
I'm,
I
I'm
think
judging
eighth
process
round.
more than results here. And just you're giving up guys who are still start worthy in the top 85, 90 picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian Robinson Jr. I think it's a perfectly fine pick. We'll see. I think with a young quarterback, they're going to want to run the ball. His yards per carry kind of sucks, but he's a good player.
I think it's a great pick, given that it sounds like you especially don't really feel great about James Cook. I feel better about James
Yeah,
Cook than you do, and I think you might feel more confident some weeks playing Brian Robinson just because he's
yeah, I think you're
safer.
probably right there. He's definitely a safer option to
My
have
bigger
as your
qualm
RB
overall,
two.
though, is it's funny. I was just arguing on behalf of Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen too, higher than you were. We mostly agree Mike Williams is good there. But you have three
Mhm.
receivers who are all at least an average receiver's level of injury prone. I would have wanted probably where the Niners defense went at least one more wide receiver who you feel comfortable starting. And there were a lot of
Yeah,
gluttony, a good one still there.
yeah. There's wide receivers galore anywhere in this draft, but yeah, I just think that Niners really kind of puts a stinker on this draft for me as far as value goes. Then just to kind of finish out here because a lot of interesting guys here. But Carlson, get your kicker. Lazard, Danny Dimes, Nico Collins, Algier, Hayden Hurst, Joshua Kelly. I mean, Daniel Jones is perfectly good backup quarterback. I like that. But the rest of these guys, I mean, they're your shots in the dark. But I don't like. I think there are better players in these situations to take.
I like Nico Collins, where he got him. I like Algier fine as a handcuff just because if we're going to anticipate the huge workload for Bijan, we have to also be honest about the fact that Algier was really good on the stretch last year.
He
If
was.
Bijan were to get hurt, and even if Bijan comes out and isn't immediately the guy, Algier is probably useful. Josh Kelly is just your handcuffing. I know you don't have Eckler here, but if Eckler got hurt, you're having a guy who takes over as an RB 1-2 like Madison with
Yeah,
Cook most of his last couple of years.
but I think Spiller would. I almost think Isaiah Spiller would have more of the load share.
Isaiah Spiller might be a better player, but I think Josh Kelly being there longer and is running as the backup probably is the guy I'd want to own. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out if Eckler gets hurt, but I think it's fine.
We might have a different grade here than than we have.
Well, the last thing I want to say though is I really don't like
Mhm.
you glossed over it. I guess more than I would. I mean, 2 of your top 10 picks are a kicker and a defense. I understand if you really love the Niners defense, but 8 and 10 respectively going there. I mean, you can't have the injury-prone receivers you have, even though I like them all, and then also not take receivers like Allen Lazard as your 4 is risky to me.
It's a nothing. That's a nothing burger especially with Garrett Wilson there.
In my mind, Nico Collins is your 4, and I wouldn't feel great about him.
Yeah, I would put Collins over Lazard as well. Allen Lazard's a perfectly fine player. I just think with that offense, the ball's not gonna find Lazard too much.
And the Niners defense I get is like kind of unanimously ranked as the 1 defense. So if you really want to just fill out your roster and see that number 1 ranked thing there, I kind of get that animal urge. But Daniel Carlson, what's the argument there? Because when I think about kickers, 1, they're random. 2, if they're not random, I want the one on a good offense, and I don't think the Raiders are a good offense. What are we even doing?
I think that's a good question.
I think he went as a 2nd or 3rd kicker. I think Tucker had gone. And that was it, maybe.
Tucker was gone, and I think everyone else was available.
Tucker, I get maybe you're a Ravens fan, you're a homer. I'm a homer in some ways too. It's fun to be analytical. It's also fun to have guys you're like rooting for. I think it's important to be honest about that in fantasy football. I have way more fun spending a little bit too much to get a Raven if I'm a Ravens fan, or a Jet if I'm a Jets fan, or whoever, and paying a premium and just enjoying rooting for my guys, as opposed to rooting for, T. Higgins or Najee Harris if I'm not a fan of those teams. So I think it's fine to do that. I'm not really sure why Daniel Carlson needed to be a 10th round pick, especially when the Niners were your 8th round pick.
That's no arguments here. But I just in synopsis with this team, I see a lot of injury prone, inconsistent guys that are going to be in here. I could say this team's probably going to end up around 500. If healthy, that's obviously the big if here with this team. But I gave it just a C. He has some good players. He has some bad picks. This team's going to be okay. It might make the playoffs. It might not. That's my head.
Couldn't really disagree too much. I gave it a C+. But this is one of the most fragile teams injury wise. And again, I can't stress enough. I like the build capitalizing on people's fear of injury with guys like Cooper Kupp, guys like Keenan Allen, guys like Mike Williams. The only thing is you can't then not draft the depth. If they're healthy in the playoffs, you're a force. But you're going to miss the playoffs if you go 0-6 mid-season just because you have no one to back them up during bye weeks and stuff. And they get hurt. I don't know. You need to basically have more depth, I think. If you make a couple good waiver pickups, this is a team that probably makes the playoffs, I think. But as it is now, it's one of the last ones in, last ones out, I think.
That's kind of where I have them. But last one here, going over the champ real quick. AJ Brown I will say, like, I had a lot of talks with him about his draft. He was concerned with being the 12, being the turn guy. Just he wanted to go get his guy. They're thinking a lot of these picks. So AJ Brown in the 12 and Gibbs in the 13. I have no problem with these picks because Gibbs isn't swinging back to the 36. It's just a risk there just because you don't know how he's going to be used. And AJ Brown, I have no issues really there too much.
To be intellectually honest, because we both kind of roasted Mixon, do you think Mixon is worse than Gibbs? And if so, by a lot? They went back to back, right?
Yeah, yes, they did. So I wouldn't say that. I would probably have not taken Jahmyr Gibbs here. I would have gone another receiver, or Ramondre, I would probably put Mixon a little bit higher than Gibbs, I would say. So this probably is definitely a reached pick. But it could turn out that Gibbs takes over and dominates, like we talked about, taking 12 overall in the draft. He's going to get the ball a lot, I think. So it's not a bad hit. It's just a little bit more risky than it needed to be.
I think that's a very reasonable take. I was just curious what your thoughts were there.
Yeah, no, definitely a reach. It's
but I think it's kind of fine. The same way where you're on the turn and you don't want to get priced out a running back in your mind. If Gibbs is your guy, get him the same way Mixon was his guy. You want to have a running back. You don't want to miss running backs. I agree with what you said, where there's receivers I would have probably rather taken. But I also Giggs. We've been very critical of the teams that don't have any good running backs. So if this is your guy, go get him. I was just curious what you thought.
No, sure. And then moving on, Brees Hall, Lamar Jackson. I think Brees Hall is going to be an absolute superstar when he's back and 100%. When that will be, I don't know. This team will have to be good enough to tread water until he is back, because will be a league winner if he's how he was before he got hurt last year. And then Lamar, obviously in the 4, that's awesome. I have no issues there.
Generally agree with both of those. I like them both where they went more than I like either the first 2 where they went, but I think the first 4 in total look really nice. It's interesting that you don't really have any injury concerns with. I mean, I feel like there's a pretty constant theme for you with some of these other teams we've talked about. I do worry a little bit. Brees Hall, I've only seen him once. He's coming off an injury that usually takes more than a year to be 100% with, and he's in a timeshare. And then Lamar has had. I love Lamar, huge Ravens fan, but the last 2 years have been rough injury wise.
Yeah, end of the year, it's been a little rough injury wise. So I mean, there definitely is the risk there. I will, to touch on Brees. He's so young. The bounce back could definitely be there, and I think he went in again with his pick. That was again the guy he wanted.
I'm not really doubting the pick. I'm just saying I think we should be honest about the fact that the injury risk is all.
No, sure. I'm not trying to but it's true. There's injury risk, and you don't know how he's going to bounce back. But I think this is the most risky backfield that in the league. But I think it could be the best by the end of the year. Honestly,
I don't even think it's the most risky, and I do like it. I think it's a top half backfield. I think even if Brees Hall is not Brees Hall until late in the season, which probably is the most likely outcome, I think Gibbs will immediately be pretty good on what I think is a top 5 to 6, 7 offense in football. I love them as your 1, 2.
Yeah,
just a lot of range of outcomes is all.
Sure. I just well, kind of like your point with just to kind of on the injury stuff. It's like when you pad it with injured guys is when it gets a little harder. Having one guy shooting a shot, and the Lamar injury stuff, I don't get too worked up on that, because both of those instances were in more passing situations, more fluky, weird tackles, instead of him running himself into an injury or something like that. I don't really put the injury label on him, even though he's missed some time at the end of the last 2 years. But
I don't necessarily do it more than the average player either at quarterback. But I think it is fair to say he's going to pass more probably this year than he ever has before in this new system with Monken. And then also, like you just said, he's gotten hurt more passing than he has running anyway. So I think he is more than the average quarterback in injury risk is all. I think he's a slam dunk pick here in round 4. That's not a criticism of the pick. Yeah, it's a risk you take to be 100% clear.
I would agree with your statement there. I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say. So no counter to that. Going Kittle here in the 5th, Akers in the 6th. I think Kittle with Purdy is awesome. It's a good pick. And he's really into Cam Akers. I'm not into Cam Akers. How do you feel about Cam Akers?
Cam Akers is like a less exciting version of Alexander Mattison to me a round or 2 later. I mean, he's probably the guy, but I've seen Kerwin Williams get some gas. I've seen the Rams' offensive line be terrible, and the team might not be great either. They're pretty stars and scrubs as a roster. So a guy who's mostly just a first, second down running back on a bad offensive line that might not win more than half their games. I don't love it, but also no one loves their running backs in the 6th round. So I think it's fine. You need to take a running back too. Kittle, I don't love as much as it sounds like you do. Again, Kittle's like the most injury prone tight end that exists.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't love it. I think it's the pick there. I think it's the right pick at the time, but yeah, he's definitely risky as far as a player goes. But
I think it's a fine pick though for both of them. I don't think either one's like a bad pick. It's just sort of like unexciting picks.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Devonta Smith with the keeper there is a slam dunk. Comes around and grabs Zay Flowers. I think that's based off having the 2 birds there. I think that's a perfectly good upside play. This team has a lot of guys that could be top guys or could not be. And I think it's kind of a fun thing for him where he's not going to be projected to win a lot of games, I don't think. But I think this team can, as the season goes, really climb up the points per week category. But
I mean, a lot of it comes down to injuries, like we said for some of the other teams. And I think as long as his top guys here don't get hurt, I mean, if you tell me Brees Hall plays early on or even week 1 and Lamar doesn't miss time and Kittle doesn't miss time, this is going to be a good team. Absolutely. Like a really good team.
Yeah. But I like
even if just one of them this time.
Yeah. I like the Zay pick there. I think that's perfectly good value, especially, he's your wide receiver 3. And I think he's going to be very involved with the offense.
I love the Ravens. I think it's a touch early in my mind for Zay, but if he's your guy, it's fine to get him there. Again, it's where we're taking the Niners defense otherwise. So I think it's fine to take your risky receiver play there.
And the counter is, do you think he's going to swing back to the 108?
No. I think I think he's probably around pick 100. I just think there's other guys in round 8. I don't have them in front of me. I didn't write them down, but I just remember there being a lot of receivers around the back top 100 pick. I would have liked a little bit more than this as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say I absolutely hate the Rashad Penny pick talking about injury guys. This guy can't stay on the field, and he's in a very loaded backfield. I would have stayed away from this guy completely. So that's just me on him.
I think it's probably about where I had him. I don't know. I think if you made me bet on one Eagles running back being the best. I know Gainwell's got a lot of steam right now. I know they love to do a rotational backfield. I think Penny, well, kind of something I said a little bit ago in this pod, is I like the guys who have pretty solid range of outcomes. And it's if Penny plays and looks like he's Penny and looks like he's a starter, you're gonna love having him. And if he does anything else, you won't probably mind cutting him. If he gets hurt, if the Eagles cut him, there's probably not too many outcomes where you're like, I kind of want to play him, but I don't know if I can. And I think that
Right.
decisive thing is a good thing to have. So I think he's fine where you got basically.
Yeah, not I'm just not a fan of the player at all. So it's just guy I was a do not draft.
I actually
So
really like the player, dude. Really,
mm.
his yards
He's
over expected on a lot of like every advanced stat basically for like the PFF. I don't know if you like the nerd stats or not, but like he is always the last couple of years been one of the top ranked before he breaks down from injury.
right. Well,
Uh,
that's my concern is he really has a heavy history of injury that's
for
so
sure,
aggressive.
for sure.
But
I'm,
again, in the ninth, it's okay. I just don't like the player that I just don't love it as all. I love JSN in the 10th, though. I think that's going to be a guys, especially as the season goes, and you don't need them right away with the receivers you
agreed.
have. So I think that's really good. And then round it out here, Jets, Mitchell, Purdy, Pinheiro, MVS, and Rashi Rice, which I think is a really good pick in the 16th. Um, but yeah, no, I think this team is solid. It definitely has some room to grow. Has a lot of risky players as far as where they're going to end up. But I gave it a C plus here.
I think Mitchell and Purdy are great picks here. Mitchell has some standalone value anyway for bye weeks, but then also if McCaffrey gets hurt like he did 2 of the last 3 years, going to be really solid. And then Purdy was I think QB 7 or 8 in the final 2 months of last season. So if Lamar does get hurt, you're kind of prepped for it. I like that too.
That's exactly what he did last year. He had Jackson and Purdy, and he took it to the championship.
It's good
And
team
real
building.
quick, yeah, real quick here, just gonna show
And you
off.
said C plus there.
I said C plus, yeah.
I was B minus on this team.
Okay, so we kind of were all
We
in the
didn't really have
same.
more than like a letter difference on any of these. We were pretty
Yeah, that's
similar.
kind of surprising almost. But yeah, just real quick, I'm gonna share my screen here. Is the little analyzation of where I think the regular season will end. Let me know what you think as far as what grades we gave some of these teams and where I put them.
Wow. I didn't prepare a final standings rank. I just sort of did the grades and where I think they are right now. I just feel like there's too much to potentially. I did this in my other one that I break down with Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot comes back to bite you, I feel like, with this. So
It's
I
so
want
I
to
mean
first
it's
say,
it's all it's just for fun. It's not
I know.
really
I just want to
any.
say first, good for you for doing the mental math and figuring out where you rank these people. So you
Yeah, it's
think, no, this is probably close to the way I would have done it too. And it shows because we ranked everybody fairly similarly. I didn't have myself as the top team. I'd probably put me under both Amon and Risky.
yeah,
But I love that
y'all.
you like
This
me. Thank
was
you.
this was this was tight. These three were my clear top three. And then there was a line. Then I kind of had myself and and Tyler Coleman and Milkman and just kind of ascending down here. But I think this is pretty clear that these two are the bottom two right now.
I was going to ask you
Um,
that if you're telling yourself a story 3 months from now, which of those bottom 3 or 4 teams missing the playoffs you think has the best chance to make the playoffs? Who has the most
well,
outcomes if they do it?
clearly, I think Riri Kemmer does just because of all the young talent. If it comes to ascend, he goes probably from here to up here. Um, that's probably it. But I think Wuhan has the ability. He's not a big waiver claim guy, so I don't know if So I don't think that's gonna move too much. And plus, he's got Kirk, and I don't know if Kirk's gonna be able to get it done for you when you need it. And then these two, I think, are just kind of there. So I think any of these could flip with a couple of, probably all the way up to me, honestly. The 9 through 4 could completely be rearranged. But I think the top three are the top three, and the bottom two are the bottom two, and then everyone else is kind of flowing in the middle. So
I think that's a decent analysis. I think I agree with you that Rearview is the one of the non-playoff teams I like the best. I would probably say I think he has a decent chance to make the playoffs. Sounds like you're a little more concerned with. It's funny. I feel like we took turns there on most of those teams breaking down. I don't like the injury here. I don't like the injury here. Um, but I think maybe I'm a little bit less injury concerned in general than it sounds like you might be. Because also the Cooper Cup team, I don't think I have as much worry about as it sounds like you might. Those are probably both teams I'd put a little bit higher.
okay. Yeah, so who would you drop here that sounds like of the guys I put a little higher for
I'd
these
probably
two?
have both Coleman and Milkman and Dicker Downs aspire to lower. Because I think they're all. I think the tier is fine. I think I agree with your tier there.
Mm-hmm.
I think 1 through 4, I would have a different order, but I think that is the 1 through 4. And then Milkman or Coleman, I think makes sense where you have them. Uh, it's kind of prodding here. I don't know. I would probably have Digger Downs and Milkman a little bit lower though, and those two maybe aspire too higher.
Okay, so basically kind of move the 6 through 10 around, or 6
Which
through
again,
10
to your
down there
credit,
a
is
little
sort of
bit.
what you said as far as like you think it's all a tier. I agree with you.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I'm gonna do a quick out here just because this has been a beefer. But yeah, good breakdown, good analysis. Thank you for your time. Any closing remarks?
No, I appreciate you having me on. This was fun. I wanted to ask you, the only other question I didn't talk about was, do you have any overarching takeaways? You've done 2 drafts now with it being got keepers involved with this sort of format here. Do you have any sort of
Mhm.
general takeaways you felt like you've learned about the way this league drafts, or the way maybe next year you should be looking out for things? What are the things we can learn?
I think well, I guess my question is how did you feel about the pause stuff? Did that impact you at all, or really kind of like
I
having
don't
to
know, man.
pause for a lot of people?
I don't want to be a Monday morning quarterback to you. I think my personal opinion is you probably should have just had everybody on their laptops. But I also hate saying that to you because I love the effort you put into this, dude. Doing the podcast, buying a draft board, having all those people over to your house. I live in Arizona, so I couldn't come, but I think the people you had over probably had a blast doing that. And that's
Yeah,
why, even though I don't know most of the people personally in this league, even I think it's a fun league. I think I love that you did that. It was a little bit inconvenient as someone who's not there, but like
sure. It
it
made it
wasn't the end of the world or
inconvenient,
anything.
but
I knew what you were doing. It went a little
yeah,
bit slower, is all.
yeah. I tried to keep it up as best as possible, but no, I know we'll see how what we do next year. Whether we there were some discussions of like editing the league as far as the form, like just kind of making some overall like changes, just big changes. Whether we but that's all kind of backdoor stuff that might not even happen. But no, I think it definitely was a little rough, honestly. But the people that were over had a good time,
There's probably a
and
lot of work for you though, too. I want to say,
it
like I
was,
think it was a
but it
bit
was fine.
delayed,
I
but
would
you
do it
probably had to
again.
put the most effort in.
Hey, that's fine. I wanted to, but
It's a thankless
no,
job though, so I just want you to know that I'm not even there, and I appreciate that you did it.
well, thank you, but no, I think it was fun. I think it was a good time, but um, I definitely think that moving forward, it definitely needs to be different than me doing what I did this time. So, but as far as the big takeaways from the other than just how the draft went, I think we see a pattern here for the most part of the people who are doing their homework and the people who are not. And the people who just get lucky sometimes, and the people who just seem to have a way of working it out. Like Ed, for example, he never seems to draft super well, but he makes good waiver claims throughout the year and always finds himself in the playoffs. And I think he's been in 2 championship games, so you know he and the 3 years we've been doing the league, so he finds his way there. And Purcell, as much as I like to give him shit, he does a good job and gets to play a lot too. So the guys who get it, and the guys who don't, maybe need to spend a little more time doing some research. So that's about it.
That's a fair take, and it's one that I think is important hearing you say, because I don't know the extended period playing style and level of, like you said earlier, for I think you mentioned it was with Wuhan, working the waiver wire and doing the homework in advance. That said, I think general takeaways, the ones I wrote down, where I said a couple different times, but I think in this format of a league, especially if you think some teams might not be doing as much homework as you are, don't be afraid to go in on injury-prone guys who are studs when they're healthy, because they'll be the difference makers, like Le'Veon Bell a couple years ago in the playoffs, or
Mm-hmm.
David Johnson in the playoffs 1 year. Don't be afraid to fill quarterback and tight end early. Those are takeaways I have for myself for next year, and I think everybody should probably take advantage of too. And then with your keepers, map out and prepare for the surface value, or the surplus value, pardon me, to be what you worry the most about, because a lot of great players were kept, but on most of these teams, Matt agreed, it sounds like the best keeper options might have been your mid-round keeper for a later pick, giving you a better roster at the end of the day. And I think if you end up in the long run feeling like in the next year, the year after this, becomes a deeper league in some way, or a league that's more competitive, then you want to have more depth. But I think it's important to definitely take advantage of your shots on the risky guys, on the quarterback and tight end when there's only one playing, and not worry as much about waiting to draft quarterback, tight end, or a guy who might be injury prone. Because I think when we're looking over it, we loved a lot of the teams that have deep running backs, deep receivers,
Mm-hmm.
and also a good quarterback or tight end.
Well, sure,
We
who
also
wouldn't?
really, I think, even though we felt differently about some of the levels of injury prone for different guys, we loved the guys who had those studs at the top, the blue chip producers when they are healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
So
I
that's what I
mean,
would say.
yeah, absolutely.
There's 12 teams
But
here. Your chance of winning this league is probably at best 8%, maybe 10% if you're better than average. So
yeah,
you need to hit a couple legs of a parlay here to win anyway. And if those parlay legs, or Cooper Kupp doesn't miss any time, or if those legs of the parlay, or Jamar Chase doesn't miss any time, even though he did last year, you're already sort of betting on those parlay legs hitting. Don't be afraid to lean into the risk there.
that's good advice. With that being said, I'm gonna end the call, and thank you for hanging out.
Love you, buddy. Thanks again.